Chapter 827. A figure flashed. Elder Yu Yi had already returned to his original position. His bloodied right hand was still pinching his two eyeballs. A smile appeared on the Redemption City Lord's face. He knew that Elder Yu Yi had a move called eye snatching. He could use his super speed to remove the enemy's eyeballs in an instant. The most amazing thing was that the removed eyeballs were almost undamaged. It was 100 times better than digging them out with a knife. There was once a medical master who said that if Elder Yu Yi returned his eyeballs, there was a way to reconnect the eyeballs to the eyes of the blind person. However, this had never happened before. This was because Elder Yu Yi would never return his eyeballs. He was expressionless as he pinched his crystal-clear eyeballs, exploding them one by one. The onlookers all sucked in a breath of cold air. This fish-eyed, disciplinary elder was indeed cruel and merciless. A miserable howl resounded on the street. This person wasn't Yu Yang, but a guard who was standing beside Elder Yu Mu. He was originally the guard beside the Redemption City Lord, standing beside the personal guard captain and the butler. At this moment, both of his eyeballs had been dug out, revealing only bloody black holes. This guard, who suddenly reacted, couldn't bear the heart-wrenching pain. He covered his face with both hands and howled crazily. Elder Yu Ye's pupils dilated rapidly when he saw this. The Redemption City Lord and the surrounding people all looked as if they had seen a ghost. All of their faces were filled with disbelief and horror. Yu Yang clapped his hands. His lonely clapping was especially ear-piercing in the midst of the painful howl. Every clap was like a hammer hitting the hearts of the people. If you think that you can dig out my eyes with the speed of that turtle, you're wrong. Before Yu Yang could finish his words, Elder Yu Ye's index and middle fingers pierced into Yu Yang's eyelids again. This time, everyone saw clearly that Elder Yu Ye's eyes had indeed been pierced. Elder Yu Ye's shadow was too fast to be captured, but everyone could still see his attack clearly. Bo! As soon as Elder Yu Yi returned, he immediately crushed the eyeballs in his hands, not giving his enemy any chance to regret. It hurts! Yu Yang covered his face and shouted. Humph! The City Lord of Salvation snorted in his heart. If this kid hadn't been so careless, perhaps he wouldn't have let Elder Yu Yi succeed in seizing his eyes second time. The damage transfer from before was probably because this brat had some kind of skill that could transfer his own damage. But what about the second time? Could he still hide? The Master of Redemption City glanced around him and found that none of the guards around him had their eyes injured. The person who was covering his face and shouting was the hateful human kid opposite him. He was just about to open his mouth and mock the other party for getting what they deserved. Unexpectedly, before he could open his mouth, an Imperial bodyguard behind him frantically shouted, No, it's my eyes, I can't see. The onlookers all looked behind the Lord of Redemption City. One of the guards in the crowd was shaking his head in pain. His eyes had also been dug into two terrifying bloody holes. This time, the spectators immediately retreated dozens of meters, afraid that they would become the target of Yu Yang's damage transfer. Now he understood. Why wasn't this kid afraid of attacks? It was because he had a way to transfer damage. That was why he dared to challenge Elder Yu Yi at Heaven-ranked level 3. Shatter. Elder Yu Yi condensed a ball of terrifying energy in his right hand. Once he attacked, not to mention a Heaven-ranked level 3 warrior, even half of Redemption City would probably collapse. The onlookers were all scared out of their wits. He was going to die. This Elder Yu Yi was going to go crazy. Wait a minute. At this time, the only person who dared to stand out to stop was the Oxhead Lima. The Oxhead Lima rushed to the side of the city lord and waved his hand anxiously. That's not damage transfer. He's using an even faster speed. It's useless to use the power of extinction to attack. It will only destroy the city. When he said this, everyone, including Elder Yu Yi, turned to look at him. Everyone was filled with confusion. The Oxhead Lima swallowed a mouthful of saliva and pointed at Yu Yang with a trembling finger. His ability isn't damage transfer, but acceleration. I didn't see the first one clearly, but I saw the second guard. That person first flew behind the city lord before Elder Yi dug out his eyes and grabbed the guard a block in front of him. Then, He waited for Elder Yu Yi to dig out his eyes before putting him back. His speed is really unimaginable. The city lord was so shocked that his whole body turned cold. What? The ox head, Lima swallowed hard again. Lima is right. Although Elder Yu Ye's speed is famous for being fast in the entire southern heaven realm, the other party's speed is even faster. Elder Yu Yi suddenly turned his face and stared at Yu Yang. This was the first time he looked at Yu Yang seriously. Under everyone's gaze, this kid first slid to his side, grabbed a guard, made him dig out his eyes, and finally put the guard back. This series of actions had even fooled his own eyes. How fast does he need to be to complete all of this? Elder Yu Yi couldn't imagine it. For the first time, he felt that this weak enemy was very difficult to deal with. The city lord still didn't dare to believe it and asked the oxhead Lima, "How did you see it?" The oxhead Lima smiled bitterly. "I can immediately use my hose to create a special shockwave that ordinary people can't hear. It's like the sound waves of bats, and it can cover the entire space. Only I can hear it. In this space, the echoes will tell me everything that is happening like eyes. I can see, but I can't stop it. In comparison, I'm like a pitiful snail." For the third time, Elder Yu Yi made his move. This time, he used his fastest speed and threw out a ball of strange energy that looked like mucus to trap Yu Yang. He pointed the index and middle fingers of his right hand directly at Yu Yang's eyes. While people were watching, they felt that their bodies, which were trapped in a mucus energy, were like a group of ants that fell into a small pond. No matter how they struggled, it was useless. Their struggling speed was so slow that it seemed like they were moving in slow motion. In the center of the mucus energy, people saw that Elder Yu Yi was like a fish swimming. As fast as lightning, he swam in front of Yu Yang and used his 2 fingers to dig out his eyeballs. However, a strange miracle happened. The moment he was about to dig out his eyeballs, people saw the human boy move even faster than Elder Yu Yi. Compared to him, Elder Yu Yi, who was as fast as lightning, seemed to have stopped. He moved in the opposite direction and dodged Duo Qing's 2 fingers. He slid towards the city lord and randomly grabbed a guard beside him. Then, he retreated and placed the guard in front of Elder Yu Yi. Elder Yu Yi saw it too, but he couldn't stop the inertia of his hands. When he watched himself dig out the guard's eyes and retreated, the heavily injured guard had already been placed back in his original position. The most terrifying thing was that the guard didn't even realize that his eyes had been dug out because of the speed. When Elder Yu Yi pinched his 2 eyes, the guard finally realized that he was blind. Only then did the guard realize that he was blind. He groaned in pain and slid to the ground weakly. If it weren't for the mucus energy that could bind people, no one would have been able to see Yu Yang's movements or even Elder Yu Ye's attack clearly. Now, everyone could see it very clearly. Elder Yu Ye's speed was very fast. Ordinary people were like snails compared to him. However, the speed that he was so proud of was on a completely different level compared to the boy in front of him. If Elder Yu Ye's speed was like a swimming fish, then the boy's speed was like a flying eagle or even faster than lightning. No one had ever thought that a person could reach such a level of speed. Even under the restriction of the mucus energy, he could still grab a guard more than 10 meters away and replace him the moment his fingers touched his eyelids. He could even release the guard at the same time. It was too terrifying. The shocking thing about this speed wasn't that it was fast, but that it was terrifying. It was a kind of terror that sent chills down one's spine. Facing this kind of speed, anyone would feel very small and helpless. What happened today is just the beginning. Elder Yu Yi crushed the eyeball in his hand and said this to Yu Yang. Then, he left expressionlessly and disappeared in an instant. "I'll wait for you, slow green-headed tortoise." Yu Yang waved his hand in the direction where Elder Yu Yi disappeared, as if he was seeing off an old friend. The Lord of Salvation City was in an awkward situation now. Even Elder Yu Yi couldn't take down this boy, let alone himself. The problem was that he had already bragged and lost 3 guards. If he didn't do anything, wouldn't he be the Lord of Salvation City? He thought for a while and clapped his hands hard. Good, what a fast speed, what a wonderful body movement. Actually, it's just a small misunderstanding between us. It's fine after we make it clear. I've always admired a chivalrous bandit like Captain Raging Flame. As for this little brother, Elder Yu Yi appreciated him even more and gave him his beloved good and evil scale. I, Chinhu, have always been happy to make friends with a heroic young man like you. As for this one, the words of the Lord of Salvation City almost shocked the onlookers to death. Captain Raging Flame had a chivalrous heart. Why didn't you admire her just now? The black good and evil scale was snatched by him. Elder Yu Yi gave him nothing. If it wasn't for his speed, Elder Yu Yi would have dug out the boy's eyeballs long ago. He wouldn't have let go of them so easily. The person who said this could no longer be described as shameless. How thick-skinned did he have to be to say such words? As expected of the famous Lord of Salvation City in the Southern Heaven Realm, who was known for his thick skin, the Lord of Salvation City originally wanted to compliment Fallen Beauty, but she didn't give him the chance. She didn't even look at him, as if the Lord of Salvation City was invisible. She ordered the few experts of Heaven Stage beside her to help her carry the flower pot, then waved at Yu Yang and Raging Flame. Let's go. It's not fun at all. What temple elder? Jumping around like a monkey, it's too boring. My personal guard captain, why don't you blind his eyes? I'm waiting for your order. Yu Yang indicated that without an order, he, as a very obedient personal guard captain, couldn't casually kill. Then let's blind him next time. I hate people who overestimate themselves and jump around in front of me. Luohua Beauty said lightly. As you wish. Yu Yang's performance as the personal guard captain was full marks. Bring the scale over. It's not a good thing, nor is it beautiful. I'll take the silver feather. This black scale is yours. Fallen Beauty took the black scale and looked at it, then threw it to Yu Yang. Yu Yang, who had a tacit understanding, had a very grateful expression on his face. City Lord, you are the most generous master in the entire Heaven Realm. Stop flattering me. Next time, don't embarrass me again. Otherwise, you can forget about being the personal guard captain. If anyone provokes you, just kill them. I hate those flea-like temple elders the most. Forget it, let's go back. Fallen Beauty handed the silver feather to Raging Flame. Raging Flame cooperated with her and bowed respectfully to receive it. The surrounding people were all completely shocked by the words of the city lord of Fallen Flowers. An elder of the central shrine, such a noble existence, was actually not worth mentioning in front of her. What exactly was the identity of this beauty? Could it be that she was the legendary? The city lord of salvation was sweating profusely, but he didn't dare to wipe it off. He quickly lowered his head and put on his most humble appearance. He was really afraid that a casual order from Fallen Beauty would destroy him. As for the previously uneasy Tauren Lima, he was so scared that he knelt on the ground. Now, even if Fallen Beauty wanted to chop off his head, he wouldn't dare to resist. No wonder the young human who could defeat Elder Yu Mu with his speed and Captain Raging Flame, who was at the peak of the 5th level of Heaven Stage, were only her attendants. No wonder she could order strangers to do things as casually as ordering servants. The few Heaven Stage cultivators holding flower pots were now very pleased with themselves. Previously, they had bitter faces, but now they were as energetic as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They all held their heads high and stuck out their chests, following closely behind. The Heaven Stage cultivators who didn't get this qualification secretly hated themselves for standing too far away just now. If they had stood behind that noble beauty, they wouldn't have missed the opportunity to make friends with an extremely noble superior. Accompanied by Raging Flame and Yu Yang, Fallen Beauty floated away. The people on the street bowed deeply like a tide, sending her off respectfully in the most pious manner. No one dared to look down on her anymore. The city lord of Salvation City was drenched in sweat, as if he had been scooped out of water. Fortunately, it was Elder Yu Mu who took action just now. Otherwise, he reckoned that even if he wasn't beheaded by that beauty, he would at least be blinded, just like his 3 pitiful subordinates. Quick, bring my treasured pearl to that honorable lord. In addition, try to gather as much information as possible. I must be the first to know the identity of this noble lord. If I neglect him, I'll cut off your head. Wait, remember, when you go, You can't lose your composure, and you can't be rude. The city lord of Salvation City's heart felt as if it was being scratched by thousands of kittens. He knew that because of the execution of King Tai Lin, an extremely noble superior had come to his city. Just what kind of existence was this person? Unimaginable, but he was definitely a superior in the upper realm. Without any connections to introduce him, it was impossible for him to personally pay a visit to express his goodwill. Not everyone would look at a superior in a favorable light. If he could get to know such a superior who didn't even put the elder of the central shrine in his eyes, then he would laugh even in his dreams. Chapter 828. When he returned to the luxurious airship with the blazing symbol, Smoke Flea was already waiting respectfully below. He reported to Yu Yang using his secret language. Yu Yang thought for a while and sent him away with a few words to gather more information. As for the group of heaven rankers who rushed over to curry favor with him, Yu Yang completely ignored them. Even the butler who was sent by the Redemption City Master to request an audience with the Pearl was rejected outside the door by Yu Yang. How could it be so easy to request an audience with a superior? The butler was not surprised that he was rejected. He knelt down and begged for an audience. If he could not see the Lord Fallen Beauty, he would not ask for anything else. He only hoped that Yu Yang would accept the priceless pearl. As long as he was willing to accept the gift, it meant that there was hope. As the personal guard captain, Yu Yang had no choice but to deal with him. Otherwise, who knew how long this guy would have to kneel here? We don't want too many people to know our whereabouts. We will leave after watching the gods' loathsome execution platform. At this time, I hope that the Redemption City Master will control himself and not let too many people disturb him. It would be best if he pretended not to know that Lord has come. Although it is said that Lord is playing on a whim, but with his noble and honorable identity, appearing in the lower realm casually is a worrying negative influence. Lord is not in a good mood today and does not want to meet any guests. If he gets better, I will definitely put in a few good words for the Redemption City Master. As for whether Lord is willing to meet him or not, it is not up to me. Let's try our luck. Yu Yang was too qualified to be the personal guard captain. With just a few words, he was able to scare the butler into a daze. The Chinyu City Master will definitely follow Lord's order and guarantee that no one will disturb Lord's rest. The butler respectfully saluted to the sky to show his worship. Then, he secretly stuffed a top-grade dragon bloodstone into Yu Yang's hand. He apologized profusely. He claimed that he did not mean to offend Yu Yang. He only asked for Yu Yang's help to reveal some information so that he could go back and report to the Redemption City Master. His attitude was perfect. He was just short of committing suicide in front of Yu Yang to show his sincerity. Yu Yang secretly cursed him for being a sly fox and pretended to be in a difficult position. Finally, under the repeated pleas of the other party, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind to reveal some information to the other party. His finger was suspended in the air, and the housekeeper hurriedly stretched out his palm to receive it. Yu Yang was not in the other party's palm and was still suspended in the air. Slowly, he drew an incomparably profound rune circle. Then, he sent a secret message to the housekeeper. Let me put it this way. Not long ago, Gudu Changfeng of the 4 big clans met you by chance and addressed you as princess. When he requested to see you, he presented the magic mirror to you. Initially, I wanted to accompany you on the journey to ensure your safety. However, you detested the magic mirror for its inauspiciousness and gave it to me. Young Master Changfeng was also ashamed of himself and did not dare to accompany you anymore. Yu Yang released the mirror of pain that was sealed in the suppressing demon tower. It lit up. If the housekeeper still had some suspicions before, now that he heard Yu Yang's words, he was immediately scared out of his wits. He was sweating profusely and his hands were trembling nonstop. No one would be surprised if some region emperor in the Heaven Realm said that he didn't know about it. After all, the Heaven Realm was too big and there were many people who didn't know about it. However, if a Heaven Ranker said that he didn't know about the 4 big clans, that would be too ridiculous. Not to mention ordinary Heaven Rankers, even the most powerful central shrine would have to show some respect. Even the most powerful central shrine would have to give some face to the four big clans. The housekeeper was familiar with all kinds of rankers in the Heaven Realm. How could he not know about young Master Chongfeng of the Dugu clan? The Master of Salvation City had tried to bribe the disciples of the Gudu clan with a large sum of money. He wanted to get to know the unruly, secretive, and low-key young Master Chongfeng through the middleman. The housekeeper had a certain understanding of young Master Chongfeng's temperament, appearance, treasures, and skills. As for the Mirror of Pain, even if the housekeeper hadn't seen it before, he had heard of it many times. Now that he suddenly saw it in Yu Yang's hands, how could he not be shocked? That was young Master Chongfeng's most cherished treasure. If he didn't offer it up willingly, who would be able to take it away from him? To be able to make young Master Chongfeng offer up his most cherished treasure and not be happy, how noble must that person be? Let's not talk about the four big clans in young Master Chongfeng. Let's not think about that unimaginably noble lord. Even this personal guard captain, who was only a heaven-ranked level 3 on the outside, was also an unfathomable person. A mere guard captain actually possessed a ceiling-type treasure with boundless power. He could even use it easily. If it wasn't for the fact that he was used to seeing precious stones and pearls being offered up, how could his expression be as calm as water? Lastly, it was strength. With the strength of a heaven-ranked level 3, he didn't fear the execution elder who was at the peak of heaven-ranked level 5 at all. Even though he knew that the execution elder was from the central shrine, he still mocked and ridiculed him. He even fought back mercilessly, almost causing the execution elder to fail miserably. With such an outstanding and arrogant attitude, if it wasn't for his strength and his backing, he wouldn't have dared to provoke a temple elder. Even a fool wouldn't try to challenge a temple elder. That would definitely be a disaster for the entire clan. However, not only did this young man do it, his attitude was also extremely arrogant. According to all kinds of information, there was only one possibility. This lord was the legendary. The housekeeper didn't dare to continue thinking. He was afraid that he would faint from fear. Unknowingly, he was so scared that his heavy clothes were soaked in sweat. It was as if he had just been drenched in water. Seeing Yu Yang's expression that seemed like a smile, yet not a smile, he was terrified. He hurriedly prostrated on the ground and used his most devout heart to salute the luxurious airship in the sky. He also apologized to Yu Yang, repeatedly saying that he didn't mean to spy on Lord information. He was just like Qianhu's city master, with a heart full of respect and longing for the pity of a superior. Go back. I will send Smoke Flea to inform you if there's good news. In the end, Yu Yang sent this guy away. He reckoned that if he continued to scare this guy would be so scared that he would commit suicide. Yes, I will wait for the Jade Decree with Qianhu's city master. Seeing that Yu Yang's attitude had changed for the better, the housekeeper couldn't help but feel elated. He hurriedly bowed and left. He knew that he was not qualified to have too much of a relationship with the Lord's personal guard captain. Being able to have a good relationship with the errand servant Smoke Flea was already the greatest success. On this trip, he was able to find out some secret information revealed by the other party. He dared to guarantee that Qianhu's city master would be extremely satisfied with his performance. As for how to get the noble lord to grant him an audience, this was not what he thought about. Let Qianhu's city master worry about it himself. Yu Yang returned to the luxurious airship, turned around the side corridor, and walked into the main hall. He found that the sexy and enchanting beauty by LV was waving at him with a smile on her face. Even if he had the sovereign's will, he couldn't help but tremble. Fallen Beauty was nowhere to be seen. She had a clean nature. After shopping for a long time, she probably ran back to take a bath. Raging Flame had just finished arranging for the Heavenly Realm Dragon Woman to control the airship and walked in from the other side. Yu Yang pretended not to see by LV. He took out the top-grade Dragon Bloodstone and purified it with Nirvana Flame before throwing it to Captain Raging Flame. Next time, let Wu Hen attach the Heaven Rune to you. Whether it's embedded in a weapon or armor, it will have a good auxiliary effect on you. Raging Flame nodded. She was already used to Yu Yang's things and would no longer resist them like before. Especially after the spiritual fusion in the energy field, she learned a lot about Yu Yang and gradually assimilated his ideals. She was no longer as chivalrous as before. "It's so beautiful. Give me one too." By LV snatched it from Raging Flame's hands and looked at it for a long time, as if she couldn't bear to part with it. Raging Flame originally wanted to give it to her, but By LV refused with a smile. She returned the purified top gray dragon bloodstone to Raging Flame and sat next to Yu Yang. She spread out a small, jade-like hand and asked him for it. "No more. Do you think there's a basket? That guy just stuffed one." Yu Yang ignored her at first, but then he couldn't bear to see that small, jade-like hand waving in front of him. He couldn't stand By LV's coquettish manner. This girl was already particularly sexy and enchanting. From what Yu Yang had seen, other than the mesmerizing impatience and the hornless dragon Jiangying, this girl was the sexiest. After revealing her true appearance, he felt a particularly captivating magic emanating from her body. Yu Yang took out the priceless pearl. He didn't put it down, but deliberately threw it into her palm to show that he was unwilling. No matter what Yu Yang said, the pearl was in his hands. By LV's smiling face was as beautiful as Yin Yin. "Isn't this pearl for little sister Fallen Flowers? It's not a problem for me to take it. Be careful that little sister Fallen Flowers will pull your ears. I'll return it to you." Although she had returned it to Yu Yang, she was just saying it. Right now, Yu Yang reckoned that he wouldn't be able to snatch it back even if he tried to. When Yu Yang heard her call Fallen Beauty little sister, he was secretly sweating profusely. When did they become so intimate? She even called her little sister sister. By LV was sitting too close to him. Other than her fragrance, her laughter was also like a bell. Even Yu Yang, who had Ji Zun's will, felt a little aroused. He hurriedly got up and ran to find Fallen Beauty to bathe together, to release the fire in his heart. Who would have thought that Fallen Flowers had already come out with a bath towel draped over her? She flatly rejected Yu Yang's suggestion to go back to bathe together again. When Yu Yang came out after taking a cold bath, he discovered that the three girls were discussing the current situation, seemingly very serious. "Are you sure it's an immemorial rune?" Fallen Beauty asked. "I'm 90% sure, but I don't know what the characteristics of this immemorial rune are. According to information leaked from a secret channel, because of the seal, at least 10,000 heaven rankers' lives and blood must be sacrificed for the immemorial rune to appear. Furthermore, 100 King Stage heaven rankers must be sacrificed. Executing King Tai Luan is just an excuse to attract more heaven rankers. Of course, there are also some of King Tai Luan's friends who want to mediate or rescue. In short, the Central Shrine's Scarlet Warden Tantai Tu Mie is willing to pay any price in order to obtain this immemorial rune." By LV also put away her playful pout with Yu Yang, her face full of seriousness. "Is the information reliable?" Yu Yang had just taken a bath and did not listen carefully, so he hurriedly asked. This top-secret information was found out by King Tai Luan's wife through a secret channel. The source of the information came from the Central Shrine. It should be that someone in the Central Shrine was worried that Tantai Tumie would obtain the immemorial rune and greatly improve his strength, threatening his position. Thus, this information was passed on to King Tai Luan's wife through a secret channel. Moreover, a line was drawn, allowing King Tai Luan's wife to contact some forces of the four great families, with the goal of destroying the sacrifice. This is not only a disaster for the Tai Luan continent, but also an internal strife in the Central Shrine. As for us, we just happen to be there. By LV nodded solemnly to Yu Yang, indicating that the information was absolutely reliable. If that's the case, then it's too shocking. Raging Flame could not imagine what the final result would be if the sacrifice was successful. It's better to come at the right time than to come early. Yu Yang smiled. Let's sit on a mountain and watch the tigers fight. If the internal strife in the Central Shrine causes both sides to suffer, then we can reap the benefits. It's difficult. By LV shook her head. Although your progress is fast compared to Tantai, Tumie, you are still far behind. If the big bad guy hadn't broken through to primordial level, then I wouldn't be optimistic. But now, I still support my bad guy. Luo Hua City Mistress stood up and sat in Yu Yang's embrace. In front of the two girls, she unscrupulously wrapped her arms around Yu Yang's neck and kissed his cheek intimately. Student Yu Yang, I, the city mistress, support you so much, you can't let me down. City mistress, please rest assured, I will do my best and do my best. Yu Yang was teased by Fallen Beauty. He couldn't help but immediately carry the beauty and rush into the bedroom. Bai LV was surprised by the attitude of city mistress Fallen Flowers. So what if she had comprehended primordial level? Her opponent was Tanai Tu Mia. But immediately, she understood. This was what a wife should do. Trust her husband unreservedly and support him wholeheartedly. After she thought it through, she turned to look at Captain Raging Flames and asked with a smile, "Do you also believe that he can succeed?" Captain Raging Flames frowned. Tantai Tumia is indeed very powerful, but Yu Yang is a person who can achieve anything. He has created many impossible miracles. Besides, this doesn't have to be a fight. Maybe the primordial rune has chosen Yu Yang, not Tanai Tumia. You don't know much about him. I've trained with him in Tongtian Tower for a long period of time, and there has never been anything that baffled him, especially with the support of so many people. You don't know how outstanding those people are. In short, he will succeed. Perhaps it won't be a day, but I believe that he will succeed in the end. Bai LV was stunned. She didn't expect Captain Raging Flames to answer like this. Finally, she laughed. She understood what Raging Flames meant. It was to comfort her, but she also didn't need Raging Flames' comfort. In fact, although she said that, she still supported that kid in her heart. Otherwise, why would she tell him such a shocking secret? Or, even if she told him, she would persuade him to leave and not let him come to the Tyloan continent. In fact, the one who believed in his success the most was herself. Although the sound insulation of the bedroom door was good, Bai LV and Raging Flames could hear the sound of some kind of battle. Their expressions changed at the same time. Bai LV was shy, her face flushed, her legs subconsciously closed together, her fingers pretending to drink water, trembling slightly. Raging Flames was even more embarrassed. She had actually heard about it many times and was already familiar with Yu Yang's combat power. It was just that this was not the Heaven Stairway, and Bai LV was not Sickly Beauty and the others. So she felt a little embarrassed. Does he and Sister Fallen Flowers often do this? Bai LV still didn't know that she had a part of the responsibility. If it weren't for her deliberate teasing and unintentionally seductive posture, Yu Yang wouldn't have gotten angry so easily. Just get used to it. Captain Raging Flames didn't want to talk about this topic with Bai LV. She stood up and prepared to return to her room to rest. Do you sometimes have some thoughts? Bai LV broke the pot and asked. I'm a giant. Raging Flames paused and quickly denied. Don't guess randomly. I'm not in his aesthetic at all. I have nothing to do with him. Well, I believe so. Bai LV suddenly put down the cup when Captain Raging Flames was about to enter the room and said to Raging Flames in a secret message, have you heard of something called the Holy Fruit of Fairies? Even a woman with an ordinary appearance will become a great beauty after eating it. It even has the ability to transform its body at will. Maybe you can try it. Thank you. I won't pursue that kind of thing that exists in an illusory legend. It's good as it is now. I don't have too many thoughts. My relationship with him is really that of a partner, not what you think. Raging Flames shook her head and held the door handle, preparing to close the door. What if I say that I happen to have one? Bai LV's words made Raging Flames freeze. Chapter 829. The butler stood in front of the Master of Redemption City and reported everything respectfully. Although the Master of Redemption City was prepared, he was still frightened by the information that the butler found out. Fortunately, he changed his stance quickly. Otherwise, his entire family would have died without a burial place. Even if he was the Master of Redemption City, who was specially appointed to guard the god's hatred execution platform in the outer hall of the central shrine, he would not be able to kill him with one finger if he offended that kind of lord. It was easy to change the Master of Redemption City. There were many people in the central shrine who were eyeing his position covetously. If there was a reason to condemn him, he would definitely die. Tell me, I want to know your thoughts on this matter. The more detailed, the better. Apart from being thick-skinned, the master of Redemption City was also good at using other people as a mirror. He knew how to correct his own mistakes in time through other people's eyes. "Sir, please forgive me for being blunt." Of course, the butler knew the temperament of the master of Redemption City. Moreover, their interests were tied together. Of course, he was willing to suggest the master of Redemption City. "Actually, even with your status, it's impossible to get close to that heavenly guest. After all, the difference in status is too great. If we express our feelings too hastily, it'll easily make the other party unhappy. For example, the best pearl in our eyes is a priceless treasure. However, in the eyes of the other party, it's like a bowl of brown rice to a person who is used to eating luxurious banquets. Compared to young master, everlasting wind's mirror of pain, our pearl is like a piece of old linen in front of a brocade robe. It's not worth mentioning at all. Most importantly, young master, everlasting wind's mirror of pain, can't get the favor of that heavenly guest. That's why young master, everlasting wind left in shame. What we need to do now is nothing else but to control the situation according to the other party's instructions and wait for an opportunity. If the heavenly guest is happy, it's not impossible for him to summon us." Well said. The master of Redemption City nodded with satisfaction. "Of course, I know my limits. As long as I don't offend that heavenly guest, it's already a great success. You have to handle this matter. No matter what method you use, no one is allowed to disturb you." As for the Oxhead Lima, he would temporarily wait in the mansion. If there was a need, he might be sent out to ask for a reward. "Elder Yumu, we don't care. It has nothing to do with us. On the other hand, we must build a good relationship with that smoke flea. Through him, we can open up a channel to the guard captain. That young man is definitely not an ordinary person. We must stabilize this situation first. This matter is not necessarily a bad thing. I even have a feeling that our luck is about to change. Congratulations, my lord." The butler also knew that this was a good opportunity. If the city lord succeeded, entering the upper circle of the heaven realm would no longer be a dream. "If I, the city lord, have a meteoric rise, I will not forget all of you. Do your job well, and in the future, we will enjoy the upper realm together." The master of Salvation City patted the butler's shoulder earnestly, making the butler's eyes wet and almost tearful. A luxurious airship. City Lord Fallen Flowers was fiddling with her precious flowers, while the female, giant Raging Flame insisted on her habit of training on the heaven stairway, doubling her training every day. LV looked everywhere, but did not find Yu Yang. At first, she thought that he had gone out, so she waited patiently. Who would have thought that he would not return after a long time? In the end, she could not help but sit beside City Lord Fallen Flowers and asked softly, "Sister Fallen Flowers, where's your guard captain?" Fallen Beauty smiled and stopped. "I thought you could hold back for a day. He is not here. Don't worry. He'll be back later." In fact, Yu Yang had entered the black hole sealed space to look for Her Majesty Queen Vivian Lee. However, Fallen Flowers did not want to mention it to Bai LV and was too lazy to explain. Without Yu Yang, no matter what she did, Bai LV did not seem to have the energy to do it. She lazily nodded and lay down to read a book. After a while, she put the book down and sighed. "This damned heaven rune is too complicated and difficult. It's really hard to imagine how you guys can read it." In fact, she was not surprised that City Lord Fallen Flowers was proficient in heaven runes. It was just that Raging Flame had mastered more than her, which was what really frustrated Bai LV. Raging Flame was doing strength training. She wiped her sweat and waved her hand. "I'm nothing. I'm not even 1/10,000th of Fallen Flowers." However, the ones who are most proficient in runes are the two mistresses, Traceless and Flawless. When she said this, Bai LV stuck out her tongue in fright. Black hole sealed space. Queen Vivian Lee's cheerful laughter continued to ring out, and the surrounding black hole continued to absorb it. Yu Yang's return had brought her a surprise that far exceeded her expectations and expectations. In the energy field, Yu Yang's soul resonated with Ji Zun, Night Empress, and the other girls. They exchanged fused realms together, and comprehended breakthroughs together. He had reached the most perfect, innate sovereign realm in history. In this kind of perfect comprehension, even for Queen Vivian Li, who had almost swept through the heaven realm back then, it was extremely beneficial. When she absorbed Yu Yang's pure innate qi, she also used her realm to connect with him. Yu Yang had achieved a breakthrough to a higher realm. As for Fei Wenli, she had been strengthened in the innate sovereign realm. How long did I sleep? Under the impact of the new realm brought by Queen Vivian Li, Yu Yang once again fell into a deep sleep. It was only now that he realized how terrifying Queen Vivian Li's true realm was. Less than a day. I thought you would sleep for a few days, but your body's potential is far beyond my imagination. Queen Vivian Li lightly kissed Yu Yang's face. With Yu Yang's current strength and realm, it was impossible for him to completely assimilate Queen Vivian Li's realm. However, he cleverly sealed Fei Wenli's extremely high realm in his mind, just like Sister Xin Yang's inheritance of knowledge. Then, he slowly comprehended it and assimilated it layer by layer. If not for Sister Xin Yang's previous inheritance of knowledge, without the perfect, innate sovereign realm adaptation, Yu Yang would definitely not wake up so easily. He would probably have slept for 10 days to half a month. This time, when Yu Yang merged with Queen Vivian Li's realm, not only did it bring about the sublimation of the innate sovereign realm, it also allowed his innate invisible sword qi to have a new breakthrough. If he was not in the black hole space, he would have rushed to find the heavenly sword goddess. Now, for the first time, Yu Yang had the feeling of being an absolute expert. Finally, with a sword in hand, he had the confidence of being invincible in the world. It was just like that day when he saw the heavenly sword goddess in the dream realm, splitting space, destroying the world. Everything that was impossible in the past was no longer a fantasy. Yu Yang was in the black hole space. Even though 90% of his innate qi had been absorbed by Fei Wenli, he still had the feeling that he could swing his sword and pierce through the black hole seal. The pressure that the black hole seal gave him in the past was no longer impossible. Could it be that this was the legendary divine sense that could easily see through everything in the world? Was this the legendary and invincible divine sense that could ignore everything? Queen Vivian Li hugged Yu Yang's neck with both her hands, smiling like a beauty. Now, I finally have the feeling of being a divine sovereign. Yu Yang did not have the time to feel her intimacy. Instead, he placed his hands in front of his eyes in disbelief and looked at them for a long time. Is this really the power that I control? Chi! A stern shout came from behind him. Little One Li, who had also benefited from the realm fusion, had an illusion of 100 meters tall golden snake demon above her head. It was solemn and dignified, and its divine might was intimidating. Under Little One Li's actions, the golden snake demon raised its golden giant blade and fiercely slashed at the black hole seal space, as if it wanted to blast open a passage and rescue its mother, Queen Vivian Li. Hundreds of millions of rays of light, like a divine pillar striking the sea, rumbled forward in the endless darkness. This was an energy pillar that the golden snake demon had blasted out. Even the black hole seal space could not withstand it. Crack! In the distant sky, a ray of light that looked like a star appeared. However, an indescribably strong power of the ancient code instantly appeared beside Fei Wenli, firmly suppressing her. Queen Vivian Li could not even blink her eyes. Directly after the crack in the black hole space disappeared, the hidden power of the ancient code completely disappeared without a trace. The black hole space also returned to normal, as if it had never been pierced. Little One Li was stunned. She thought that today, after obtaining the guidance of the Divine Supreme Realm, she would be able to successfully save her mother, who knew that the seal of the black hole space was far beyond her imagination. In fact, Yu Yang knew this before she made her move. Just breaking through the black hole space was not enough. As early as the first time he entered here, Queen Vivian Li used her remaining strength to open the space and send him out. It was the same every time after that. If Fei Wenli could break through the black hole space and leave, she would have broken the seal long ago. The true power of the seal was the Nirvana seal law. Only by possessing the ability to surpass the sealer, or completely deceive or break the seal law, could it be possible to rescue Queen Vivian Lee. The black hole seal. It was not so easy to escape. Queen Vivian Lee used her hand to gently caress little one Lee, who turned her head back with tears on her face. The soft, motherly glow shone at this moment. "Baby, I'm very happy that you have such a wish. But this can't be rushed. It's better to leave it to Mother and Father to solve. Father will definitely save me. His future divine deity is the world, and the black hole space is just a part of the world." Cough. When Yu Yang heard the word father, he was a little embarrassed, especially now that his body was naked. Yes. Little Winley was not embarrassed about the naked father and mother. On the contrary, she liked being intimate in such a situation and felt that it was natural. She hugged Queen Vivian Lee with one hand and Yu Yang with the other, unwilling to let go of either side. In the end, after consuming a large amount of energy, she felt a little tired and felt uncomfortable after staying in the black hole space for too long. She reluctantly kissed Queen Vivian Lee goodbye and returned to Yu Yang's body to sleep. Queen Vivian Lee waited for little one Lee to sleep. She changed from a mother to a conquering queen. Even if she was lying on Yu Yang's chest, she hugged him intimately. She could still think rationally. After a long time, Fei Wenli said seriously, "Tantai Tumia is a strong opponent for you, but he is only a strong opponent. His intelligence, strategy, and ability make it impossible for him to become a top contender. On the other hand, that Jiwuri is a big threat. I don't know King Tai Luan, but the god's hatred of torture platform has existed since ancient times. Moreover, the older generation of warriors also know that there are 3 immemorial runes under the god's hatred of torture platform. Ordinary forces can't even shake their seal." Yu Yang was shocked and then ecstatic. "There are 3 immemorial runes." Queen Vivian Lee pressed her jade-like hand on Yu Yang's lips, indicating that he should not be too excited. "These 3 immemorial runes are extremely difficult to obtain. Even I failed in the past. No matter how many people Tanai Tumia kills, no matter how many blood sacrifices he performs, it is destined to be a waste of effort. You don't need to spend too much time on the god's hatred of torture platform, but the trial grounds." Yu Yang knew that this was the most important news. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and listened carefully. The trial grounds is actually the entire process of an ancient warrior training a descendant god. Chapter 830. Yu Yang returned from the black hole and meditated for another day. Dream Realm. These are the 3 swords that I have comprehended. While Yu Yang was meditating, he showed the heavenly sword goddess He Gui Tsang by Shuanghua and Qi Xiao Lian the 3 swords. The sword Qi that Yu Yang condensed now had a godly power. Although it was far from the heavenly sword goddess's finger, it was a huge improvement compared to before. It could completely split the heaven and earth, and its power was endless. The heavenly sword goddess saw it, but did not make any comments and quietly disappeared. Maybe in her heart, she tacitly agreed that the child was teachable. Maybe Yu Yang's comprehension was not up to her requirements. At least he did not have the possibility to learn the next few swords. Yu Yang's state of mind was very stable. He was not ecstatic, nor was he discouraged. In fact, the more powerful Yu Yang was, the more he realized that he had grasped too little. Sister Xin Yang's inheritance of knowledge pointed out that if it was possible, it was not impossible to create a world with a single thought. The current Yu Yang, compared to the description of Sister Xin Yang's inheritance of knowledge and the supreme realm left by the previous warriors in the world tree, was still too far away. The most obvious example was that even Fei Wenli and Ji Zun were far beyond him, so he could not help but look up to them. "You seem to be a little different." Yu Yang found that the big lowly who was sparring with him seemed a little depressed. This was the first time she was not ahead of Yu Yang. The big lowly touched her index finger cutely, and the hair on her head bent down. "The bag on your waist looks a little familiar." Yu Yang suddenly saw a strange bag hanging on the big lowly's waist. The big lowly stared at him with a little panic and kept the bag in her bosom. This made Yu Yang, who wanted to snatch it to take a look, awkwardly stop his curiosity. Forget it, this big lowly's bag was also his. It was not a big deal to let her keep it. Yu Yang always had a wish in the past. He hoped that when he could defeat the big lowly, he would ruthlessly beat her up and take revenge. Now he had finally caught up to her. His realm was the same as hers, so she couldn't muster up any energy. He sat down next to the big lowly and carefully observed her. He realized that the big lowly had actually changed a lot without him noticing. It wasn't about her appearance, nor was it about her body. It was about her spirituality. She had changed a lot from when she was just created by the heavenly sword goddess using her sword chi. She was much cuter than before. Could it be that she wasn't a sword chi, but an immortal spiritual body born from that small chinquin bag? In the beginning, she wasn't too cute when she was a little violet. Now, it could kill Yu Yang, the otaku, with its cuteness. After teasing him for half a day, the big lowly already knew what kind of person Yu Yang was, so she was completely on guard against him. Hence, Yu Yang was unable to get any information out of her. However, if Yu Yang said it was fun, she would wrinkle her cute little nose and squint her eyes into crescent moons, secretly laughing. If Yu Yang said it was hateful and provoked her, she would immediately give him a punch. She was a violent woman. It was also from this day onwards that Yu Yang's training method had a whole new content. The big lowly did something that Yu Yang had never seen before, the top-up energy converging method. She placed her hand on top of Yu Yang's head and poured all of her energy into his body. Just as Yu Yang was about to return the energy back to her body like he did during dual cultivation, the big lowly refused. A light flashed in her bosom, and she recovered in an instant. When Yu Yang found it hard to digest her huge amount of energy, the big lowly planted a kind of energy source that Yu Yang couldn't understand his heart. It was a kind of seemingly weak but inexhaustible energy source. This kind of energy source was like the seed of a world tree. Although it was weak, it felt like it could enrich the whole world if it grew up. When Yu Yang exited the dream and returned to the grimoire world, he found that the space inside was completely different. A kind of life that he had never seen before was born. Only now could the grimoire world be called a world. The halo-shaped beast world also started to change. It was no longer expanding in 2 dimensions, but in 8 directions and 10 directions. It had shrunk to a very small size now, but the energy it contained did not decrease, but increased instead. Yu Yang held it in his palm. He felt like he was holding the whole world in his hands. When the world was completely formed, it might be the time when the legendary divine spark was born. The higher realms are still far ahead. I need to work harder and grow faster. Yu Yang was now full of enthusiasm for training. If it wasn't for all the things that he had to do, he really wanted to return to the Heaven Stairway and focus on training with Shui Wuxia and Princess Sisai for a few years. Through this meditation, Yu Yang deeply comprehended the sublimation of thinking brought about by Queen Vivian Li's fusion of the Holy Supreme Realm. Although there was still a long way to go before he could completely fuse with Fei Wen Li's realm, Yu Yang had already taken a big step forward. At the very least, he had crossed the limit of the innate Elder Realm. He had unbelievably stepped into the Holy Supreme Realm. Before this, no one could do this. Even Queen Vivian Li couldn't do it, let alone the Prison Emperor. It could be said that Yu Yang, who was only an innate elder, had already stepped half a foot into the Holy Supreme Realm. This was an advanced growth that no other innate elder in the world could achieve. Qishou's breakthrough under the Heaven Stairway World Tree was equivalent to directly airdropping Yu Yang to the top of the world. He didn't need to be lost halfway and could set foot on the peak. Looking into the distance, as long as Yu Yang's own strength could increase, then everything would come naturally. He would no longer need to fumble around repeatedly like other warriors. Now, as long as he opened his eyes, he could look down on the world. As long as he opened his arms, he could soar into the sky. Yu Yang didn't say anything about all this, but he knew that it was all thanks to the foundation that the heavenly sword goddess had laid for him. There was also the inheritance of Sister Si Nyang's knowledge. Without them, Although Yu Yang could also succeed, he definitely wouldn't be as fast as he was today. Part of the reason for Yu Yang's hard work was because of Shui Wuxia and the other support and supporting skills. But actually, the one who helped Yu Yang the most was the heavenly sword goddess, who was always hiding in an unknown place and silently protecting him. It was her who taught Yu Yang the innate invisible sword chi. It was her who gave him the most solid and vast foundation. It was also her who, at the most crucial moment when he received help from Jizun, Night Empress, and the others, pierced through the Heaven Stairway World Tree, allowing countless warriors from the past to enter his body. This was how he became the one and only perfect innate Jizun, the one and only Yu Yang. I won't let you down. Yu Yang clenched his fists and looked up to the sky, silently praying in his heart. It seemed like an illusion, but for a moment, Yu Yang seemed to feel that the heavenly sword goddess was high up in the sky, looking back at him with a smile. When Yu Yang opened the bedroom door and walked out of the hall, it was already 3 days after he went to meet Queen Vivian Li. Fallen flowers, raging flames, and Bai Lu saw Yu Yang walking out. Their expressions changed. All of them revealed expressions of shock and disbelief. The moment they opened the door, they seemed to have seen a god appear. If it wasn't for the familiar aura, they would have been scared out of their wits. The Heaven Realm Dragon Women guards who sensed Yu Yang's aura had already flown to the front of the hall and knelt down with tears streaming down their faces. They felt that the ancestor, the Heavenly Dragon Emperor, who had been passed down from generation to generation, had really returned and was right in front of them. Are you really Yu Yang? Bai Lu still couldn't believe it. Hey, what kind of look is that? Only then did Yu Yang realize that he had forgotten to hide his aura because he was too excited. After comprehending the fusion of realms with Empress Fei, Wen Li, even if the power that was released unintentionally, it was still as shocking as the power of the ancient code. He hurriedly hid his aura. Moreover, with his camouflage inherent skill, he could achieve an effect that others couldn't control in a short period of time. He instantly returned to his original state and disguised himself as a heaven-ranked level 3 expert. His appearance was flawless. You scared me to death. You scared me. Fallen Flowers threw herself into her lover's arms in surprise and joy, pouting coquettishly as she rewarded him with a few punches. You've improved again. Raging Flames sat on the ground. Comparing oneself to others was really infuriating. This kid had only been gone for 3 days, yet he had improved again, and it was by leaps and bounds. Not to mention catching up to him, it was impossible to even look up to him. This kind of blow was really hard to accept. Yu Yang carried Fallen Flowers and walked to the sofa to sit down. He then gestured for Raging Flames and Bai Lu to come over. Because things have changed, I have a new plan. You guys come take a look. When Raging Flames heard this, she quickly calmed her mind. In fact, this kid was an abnormal genius that was unprecedented in the history of Tong Tian Tower. No one could compare to him. Had he not seen enough miracles before? When Raging Flames thought of this, her mind immediately turned for the better. She hurriedly sat opposite to Yu Yang and seriously listened to Yu Yang's new plan. Her green eyes were filled with a strange splendor as she looked at Yu Yang, almost unwilling to look away. Fallen Beauty saw this, but she didn't feel jealous. He was her husband. The stronger he was, the faster he improved, the prouder she was. What Yu Yang and the 3 women didn't know was that in a secret room far below the luxurious airship, the housekeeper who was drinking and chatting happily with Smoke Flea dropped the cup in his hand at some point. The wine spilled all over his body, but he didn't notice it. Mr. Chin. In fact, Smoke Flea had just recovered from the shock, but he immediately pretended to be used to it, signaling the housekeeper not to lose his composure. I'm so sorry, the housekeeper asked in disbelief. Just now, I seem to have sensed the arrival of a god. With your status, this is a common occurrence. At this time, Smoke Flea was also extremely excited. It was really awesome to have such a master. Just now, it was definitely the descent of a god. With such a vast divine might, he believed that not only the surrounding space, but even the entire Salvation City would have sensed it to varying degrees. He didn't dare to think about his master's matters. What he had to do was to follow his master's orders and fool the housekeeper sent by the Lord of Salvation City to curry favor with him to death. Really, as humble as I am, I didn't even have time to kneel before the arrival of a god. It's really impolite of me. The housekeeper hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed again and again. Please don't talk about this too much. It's against the master's will. Smoke Flea's words were a little warning. Even if I die 10,000 times, I won't dare to forget the god's jade decree. The housekeeper bowed respectfully to Smoke Flea, who used to be a spy, and said apologetically, "Please forgive me for replying to the Lord of Salvation City. If the Lord wants to command us, we are willing to serve him with our lives. Mr. Cheen and the Lord of Salvation City are so warm-hearted that the master will definitely look at us differently." Smoke Flea naturally gave them some hope. Anyway, they came to him voluntarily, and it wasn't hard to make use of them. He also believed that the master wouldn't be polite to these people. However, he didn't know the master's plan, so he couldn't say too much. Otherwise, it was estimated that the housekeeper and the Lord of Salvation City would celebrate with the whole city for 3 days. When the housekeeper rushed back to the Lord's mansion as soon as possible, the Lord of Salvation City was already anxious like an ant on a hot pan. He rubbed his hands and paced back and forth. He wanted to go to the luxurious airship to take a look, but he was afraid of angering the god. When the housekeeper returned, he was already shouting with joy even before he arrived. This made the Lord of Salvation City feel as if he had suddenly seen the light of dawn in the dark night. He was overjoyed, and his whole body seemed to have lightened by half. He hurriedly went forward to welcome the housekeeper and asked with a trembling voice, "Quick, quick, tell me, is there a God's decree?" If the Lord of Salvation City knew the truth of the matter, he would probably have a cerebral hemorrhage and directly fall to the ground. However, the current him was wild with joy. He was willing to serve the god, Yu Yang, like an ox or a horse, even if he had to sacrifice his life for him. Chapter 831. Just when the butler and the master of Salvation City were filled with hope, Smoke Flea, the scumbag spy who was nothing in the past, brought them good news that made them excited. His lord wanted to see them. The master of Salvation City hurriedly put on his grandest attire, brought his wife, and accompanied by the butler and the captain of the guards. They secretly went to the hall of the luxurious airship and kowtowed to thank God. Although it was a blessing from behind a curtain, and kissing God was enough to show their sincerity, this was enough honor. People like the butler and the captain of the guards didn't even dare to raise their heads. They were afraid that they wouldn't be respectful enough and anger God. After getting a seat, the master of Salvation City thanked her again and again. In the end, he sat on the embroidered chair with an excited expression, but he only dared to sit half his buttocks. His body was as straight as a spear, deeply afraid that he would lose his composure. Not to mention him, even the butler and the captain of the guards who were standing behind the master were so nervous that they were trembling. If they didn't try their best to control themselves, they would have made a fool of themselves on the spot. Madam assists the master in guarding this area and is also a virtuous and benevolent person. Please sit down. Fallen Beauty's aura was full. Her natural elegance was unique, and no one in the world could imitate it. Her heavenly voice made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. This humble servant is moved to tears. The master's wife hurriedly wiped her tears. After thanking him, she sat beside the master, just a little behind to show her respect. Today, I invited the master and madam to come. I'm just taking a stroll and didn't come specially. It's good that the master and madam know there's no need to disturb the people. Fallen Beauty casually asked a few questions about the situation of Salvation City and its surroundings, and then gave them a cup of wine. This wine was the Qilin wine. It was then served in a rune wine cup that Yu Yang had refined, the so-called luminous wine cup of grape wine. Good wine also needed good tools to match it. It turned out that the Qilin wine was of the highest quality. Under the contrast of the exquisite wine cup that was inlaid with heaven runes, it looked even more extraordinary, as if it was from another world, incomparable to the mortal world. This The master of Salvation City had never seen such an exquisite rune wine cup in his life. His hands trembled as he held the cup. He simply didn't dare to lower his head to drink, afraid that he would make a fool of himself. It's rare that the master likes this cup. I'll give it to the master as a wine vessel. Fallen Beauty raised the cup from afar and drank it with her lips. The Lord of Redemption City hurriedly thanked him. By the time he stood up, she had already disappeared without a trace. With regards to her departure, the Redemption City Lord and the others weren't surprised at all. Instead, they felt that it was reasonable. With her noble status, it was already a great honor for her to be given a seat and a drink. Which superior would chat with an ant? That was impossible. The only thing that disappointed Qianhu, the city lord of Redemption City, was that the noble lord did not give him a mission. It was as if she still did not believe in his loyalty. They didn't even value his abilities. After Fallen Beauty returned to the Grimoire world to rest for a long time, the Lord of Redemption City finally stood up from the ground. This was even with Yu Yang's support. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stood up and continued to express his loyalty. Yu Yang invited the Lord of Redemption City to taste his wine, but the Lord of Redemption City didn't dare to finish it. After tasting it a little, other than sighing inwardly that it was the best wine in the world, he even expressed to Yu Yang that it was the greatest honor of his life and that he was extremely touched. Yu Yang wasn't a good person to begin with. Moreover, he had learned a lot of tricks from Jun Wuyu and the old fox. Tricking the Lord of Redemption City was a piece of cake. If he didn't trick him until he became a cripple, he wouldn't be considered capable. After a cordial conversation, the Lord of Redemption City couldn't suppress his impatience and asked if there was anything he could do for Yu Yang. Yu Yang muttered to himself. This action made the hearts of the Lord of Redemption City and the others hang in suspense. It's over. There's really no hope. It seemed that the other party had unlimited power and looked down on a mere Lord of Redemption City. Most importantly, the Lord of Redemption City was appointed by the Central Shrine. Although it was only in the name of the Central Shrine, it didn't have any real relationship with them. Even if the other party wanted to use people, he would have to consider the issue of loyalty. Just as he was about to express his loyalty to the other party, a golden scale suddenly appeared in front of everyone. The Lord of Redemption City had seen the black scale before and knew that it could judge good and evil. However, he didn't know what use this golden scale, which was different in appearance and energy level, had. Of course, this wasn't something that the Lord of Redemption City could ask. He could only maintain a respectful posture and wait quietly. Yu Yang took out the black good and evil scale and placed it beside the golden scale. Then, he bent down and swung the golden scale a few times. The golden scale maintained its balance from beginning to end. There was no difference at all. However, the atmosphere was tense. The butler was sweating profusely, drenching his shirt. The personal guard captain was sweating profusely. The Lord of Redemption City had never tried so hard to control his heart in his entire life. He repeated the words loyal and die for the Central Shrine. He was afraid that this mysterious golden scale was a treasure to measure people's hearts. Please forgive us, Lord of Redemption City. Because the Central Shrine has its own system, it's not convenient for us to hand over missions if there are people under the Emperor. After hearing what Yu Yang said, the Lord of Redemption City was suddenly enlightened. This golden scale was a treasure to measure whether there were spies from the Central Shrine in his group. It seemed that this balance was the proof that he was not related to the Central Shrine at all. On one side was the treasure used by the people from the Central Shrine, and on the other side was his group of people. The two were in a separate state and were clearly separated by the balance of the golden scale. If the balance was broken, he would probably never get another chance in his life. Thinking of this, the Lord of Redemption City was almost scared to death. If it was found out that there was a spy from the Central Shrine in his group, it would be a problem whether he could return alive or not. If you have any orders, Qianhu will die for it. The Lord of Redemption City wiped his cold sweat and quickly expressed his position. Now was the best time. If he didn't take this opportunity to show his loyalty and accept the mission, he would be a fool. Actually, Maybe you know some inside information about the platform of God's loathsome execution. There are some top secret information circulating through various channels. Some are real, some are fake, but those are not important. What we need to do is to maintain the existence of the platform of God's loathsome execution and not let it, which has existed since ancient times, be destroyed. This is also your responsibility to guard the platform of God's loathsome execution. After Yu Yang explained a little, the Lord of Redemption City was quick-witted. He immediately understood that his mission was to protect the platform of God's loathsome execution and not let the execution proceed. Qianhu accepts the order. The Lord of Redemption City immediately knelt down, regardless of whether he could successfully protect it or not. He had to agree to it. Not to mention Tantai, Tumia. Even if Sky Ghost and Sky Demon were here, he wouldn't have the chance to speak. Naturally, someone would stand up for him. What he had to do was to help in some small matters. Although he wasn't sure what he had to do, the Lord of Redemption City felt that as long as he stood up and did it, he would be able to achieve meteoric success in the future. As appointed city lord, he knew that there were immemorial runes under the platform of God's loathsome execution. As for the execution of King Tyloan, he also knew that it was a blood sacrifice to break the seal. However, he pretended not to know. Now that a deity had descended to stop this, he didn't care who was right or wrong, or who won or lost. As long as he could join any side, it would be the greatest success. On the contrary, if he didn't join any side and was stuck in the middle, he would die a horrible death. Previously, he wanted to join the central shrine, but Yumu obviously didn't have the intention to recommend him. Moreover, he had seen Yumu being defeated in front of him, which made him lose face. He believed that he must be secretly holding a grudge. If he didn't join the god race's side, his position as a city lord would probably come to an end soon. He might even become a scapegoat, a designated person to be sacrificed by the central shrine, a pitiful person to appease the public's anger. In view of this, how could the Lord of Redemption City not fight for his life and bright future? A fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in. If he didn't show off now, he would regret it for the rest of his life after the rare opportunity passed. Yu Yang gestured for the Lord of Redemption City and the others to sit down first. He smiled and said, "City Lord, don't be anxious. Actually, even if we don't do anything, it's impossible for Warden Tantai to open the platform of God's loathsome and explore the secret of the immemorial runes. Because only we know the truth. Under the deity's loathsome, the three immemorial runes have merged into one. Unless it's a deity, Warden Tantai won't be able to shake it even with all his strength." The Lord of Redemption City was puzzled. If that's the case, why do I still need to do anything? The butler reacted quickly. He immediately used his best actor ability and kowtowed with tears. The deities are merciful to the world. They pity us, the people who are redeemed. They can't bear to see the warden open the platform of God's loathsome with a blood sacrifice and destroy all living beings. I'm really. Chinu's head buzzed. He had become stupid from being a city lord. He couldn't even be compared to a butler. This matter wasn't about obtaining the immemorial runes. Tantai Tumi definitely couldn't obtain it. But why did he stop him? It was obvious that he didn't want Tantai Tumi, or rather, he didn't want the people of the central shrine to know the ancient secret of the three immemorial runes under the platform of God's loathsome. That was why a deity descended here and stopped him. That was why the truth continued to be buried underground. The central shrine should know something. Tantai Tomi used the execution of King Tyloan to test them. However, the god race didn't want the truth to be leaked, lest the whole southern heaven realm would be shaken and warriors from all walks of life would swarm over. From then on, the platform of God's loathsome execution would no longer be peaceful. Lord of Chinhu City, I want to meet the queen of King Tyloan. Help me arrange it. Yu Yang made a request. Yes, sir. The Lord of Redemption City immediately responded with a solemn expression. Although he hadn't called Yu Yang's full name, he had already taken a big step forward. He was already calling Lord of Chinhu City. Compared to the polite Lord of City and Lord of City before, their relationship was 2 levels closer. As long as he took another step forward and removed the 2 words Lord of City, he would be able to truly become his subordinate. With such a mission and such an opportunity, even a fool would know to climb up the ladder, let alone a wily old fox who was well-versed in the ways of the world. Yu Yong patted the shoulder of the Lord of Redemption City to show his approval. Do it well. You must do it well. Actually, not only my lord, but there are also many eyes watching this matter from behind. Sometimes the people below can do it with just a word. So just do it. This time, Qianhu was really touched. With so many bosses supporting him, what was there for him to be afraid of? He immediately burst into tears. Qianhu, I can't repay your kindness even if I die 10,000 times. A day later, Qianhu secretly found the hidden Queen Tailuan through countless secret connections. However, he heard something that shocked him greatly from Yu Yong. Yu Yong said, Queen, I have already met King Tailuan. However, he is determined to die and refuses to come out with me. Do you have any way to persuade him? King Tailuan could be rescued at any time? Then wouldn't the strict security of the central shrine be useless? The one being guarded was Tantai Tu Mie's #1 subordinate, the heavenly ghost. Forget it. I shouldn't think too much about things that are beyond my imagination. It's best for me to be a small character. If I think too much about those things, I'll definitely go crazy. But then again, was King Tailuan brain damaged after being locked up in prison? He refused to come out even when someone was trying to save him. Why would this fellow suddenly act like an idiot? Qianhu, the Lord of Redemption City, was puzzled. Chapter 832. He's just tired. The Queen of King Tai Luan sighed slightly. What? Master of Qianhu City was stunned. Actually, he and I escaped from the everlasting hatred prison. Unlike me, who was known as Wildflower, Tai Luan came from the dark world. Yu Yong was still calm when the queen said this, but Master of Qianhu City was shocked. Who was Wildflower? The craziest female bandit in the Southern Heaven Realm 10,000 years ago. The current leader Raging Flame could not be compared to her at all. Back then, Wildflower was an existence that conquered several king-level Heaven Realm territories. Warden Tantai's most capable subordinates, Sky Ghost and Sky Demon, worked together to capture her for 3 days and 3 nights before successfully capturing her. Wildflower was not famous in the beginning. She was peaceful and did not like to fight. She was just a wandering female mercenary. After that, something happened. She became a female bandit, looting everywhere. Back then, because Empress Fei, when Li wanted to conquer the entire Heaven Realm, the threatened Central Divine Palace invited heroes from all over to fight. The great leaders of the East, South, West, and North, as well as the region emperors, all gathered in the Western Heaven Realm to fight against the army led by the conquering queen. As a result, most of the places in the rear were empty of power. Many experts took the opportunity to rise, especially in the areas ruled by the region emperors who had died in battle. The Wildflower Bandit was a robbing bandit group. They never thought of controlling a place. They attacked cities everywhere and plundered resources. Even king-level heaven rankers could not suppress them. In the end, Queen Vivian Li was sealed. The leaders returned, and the region emperors regained control of the regions. The Central Shrine also sent out troops to quell the war in the Heaven Realm. As for King Tailuan, if he came from the Dark World, Master of Qianhu City shuddered. He felt that there were some things that he should not know. It would not be a good thing if he knew. He hurriedly excused himself from Yu Yong. For some secrets that he shouldn't know, the less he knew, the safer he would be. Tailuan was not called Tailuan. He was a fugitive from the Dark World. He only called himself Tailuan after meeting me on the Tailuan continent. He and I met and fell in love. Race and philosophy cannot stop the fire of love. However, he and I are both abandoned by fate. I am the daughter of a prisoner on death row in the everlasting hatred prison. Because of the protection of my family, I managed to escape before my family was exterminated. As for Tyren, he was a fallen warrior from the Dark World. He was destined to be a prisoner since birth. Even if he managed to escape from the Dark World, he would be a rat that would never see the light of day. The queen recalled the past, and her eyes flashed with a hint of nostalgia. "So you formed the Wildflower Bandits?" Captain Raging Flames asked. "No. For people like us, what we want the most is for no one to pay attention to us. Why would we form a bandit group? That was merely Tantai Tumi's request, or rather, the Central Shrine's request." The queen shook her head and gave an answer that greatly surprised Lai Yin and Jade Emerald. "When did Tantai Tumi capture you?" Bai Lu was curious. Why did Tantai Tumi want the two of them to form the Flower Frenzy Bandits? "About a year after we met and fell in love, I was already pregnant with our baby. Tantai Tumi appeared in front of us with the heavenly ghost and heavenly demon. In front of him, we could not resist at all. It was completely hopeless. He locked us up in the everlasting hatred prison to clear our name. After the child was born, he took the child away. We had no choice but to obey his orders and form the Wildflower Bandits to loot resources for him. In fact, it has always been like this. We were not the first to be threatened, and we will not be the last. In order to obtain more resources, to better control the Heaven Realm, and to better maintain their image, the Central Shrine used all kinds of methods to form countless bandit groups and seized countless cities and territories in the Heaven Realm. Almost all the areas that were not attacked were under the Central Shrine's control. Other than the territories of the Region Emperors or the leaders, the territories of the King Tier or Heaven Rankers, as long as they are not under the Central Shrine's management and are not willing to accept the Central Shrine's secret rule, they will become the target of attack. Queen Tyren revealed a secret of the Heaven Realm that very few people knew. In that case, my father was killed because of this. Bai Lu cried out in shock. She had only just come to a realization. That's right. As far as I know, the Clown Group is one of the pawns in the hands of the Central Shrine. Yu Yang figured out why the Clown Group could mix well in the Western Heaven Realm and the Southern Heaven Realm. The reason was because they had the support of some people in the Central Shrine. The Clown Group was purely a form of destruction. They never attacked a city as a base. However, they could obtain supplies in the cities that were wanted everywhere. If it was not for the Central Shrine, they would have already been eliminated by the King Tier or Heaven Rankers. However, the truth was the opposite. Even the powerful Lionheart King, who aspired to become the Region Emperor, looked at the Clown Group differently. If it was not for the support of the Central Shrine, it was impossible for the Lionheart King to cooperate with the Clown Group. Of course, it seemed that the things that the Clown had mastered were not as simple as disturbing the Southern Heaven Realm. The real reason why the Central Shrine used the Clown Group was to target the Tong Tian Tower. It was just unknown whether the battle between the Prison Emperor and the Western Heaven Realm had anything to do with the Clown. It seemed that he had to find Qian Yi, Tianlun, Wu Sei, and the other strong warriors of the Tong Tian Tower to find out more. Queen Tyloan nodded, confirming what Yu Yang had said. She looked at Bai LV. "I have heard about your father. It is said that he was punished because of his treasure. The resources that your father received were not the best, but he should have gotten a very good treasure. The Central Shrine sent people to him, but he refused to hand it over. In the end, he was betrayed by his family." Bai LV was shocked. "But I have never heard that my father had a special treasure. If you knew, I'm afraid you wouldn't be alive anymore, or you would have become a puppet." Queen Tyloan shook her head and sighed. She said emotionally, "There are some things in the world that are a disaster if you know them. It is a blessing if you don't know them. When you and King Tyloan were captured, you should be imprisoned in the everlasting hatred prison. But later, you became the famous King Tyloan. Was it also Tantai Tumi's doing?" Bai LV finally reacted. If capturing King Tyloan and the Queen was a feat, then it was normal for Sky Ghost and Sky Demon to come and capture them. But how did the two of them come out and become the rulers of a region? That's right. Queen Tyloan nodded. Because they have something in their hands, we have no choice but to listen to them. We become kings in the Southern Heaven Realm, manage a place, and collect all kinds of resources for them for many years. As for treating the people with kindness, it's just a way for us to make up for our sins with a little peace of mind. Is it possible to get rid of this control by saving you and King Tyloan's children? Raging Flame asked. Young man, what do you think? The queen looked at Yu Yang. No, impossible. Yu Yang knew that things would not be that simple. People like King Tyloin and the queen were definitely not people who could be controlled with the lives of children. Actually, the little baby from back then died a long time ago. The queen sighed sadly and covered her face with her hands, feeling endless sorrow. Then, why do you and King Tyloin still listen to them? Raging Flame did not understand. Because of one thing, and that is hope. There was a layer of mist in the queen's eyes. Hope. This word stunned Raging Flame, and by LV, Yang seemed to be deep in thought. He somewhat understood what the queen was talking about. She should be referring to the hope of the Dark Realm. King Tyloin was someone who escaped from the Dark Realm. If he died, then the people of the Dark Realm would be in complete despair. For the sake of those who had sacrificed countless lives to help King Tyloin escape from the Dark Realm, King Tyloin had to live. As for why King Tyloin was suddenly unwilling to cooperate with the Central Shrine, why was he so disheartened and wanted to die? He probably knew that all his clansmen were in trouble. Or perhaps hope was completely cut off. The queen looked at Yu Yang. Actually, Tyloin and I don't care about life and death. For people like us, the earlier we die, the earlier we are free. Besides, you know that our matter is just a setup. Tantai Tumia took advantage of it. It's like this today, and I'm afraid it will be like this in the future. If we die earlier, we can reduce some of our sins. Yu Yang pondered for a moment, then raised his head and looked at Queen Tyloin. I can't give you any promises now, but in the future, perhaps one day soon, I will kill Tantai Tumia. If you and Tyloin can wait, then try your best to endure. You may have done many wrong things, but as long as you have the heart to correct yourself, you will eventually wash away your crimes and restore your original nature. I don't know much about the Dark Realm, but in the Western Heaven Realm, I saw more than 10,000 warriors of the Dark Realm appear with my own eyes. Although they are still unable to completely escape control, there's at least a trace of possibility. Those are only superficial improvements. If we don't overthrow the Central Shrine, there will never be a dawn in the Dark Realm. Pawns will always be pawns. The queen shook her head gently and finally looked at Yu Yang. Young man, if you can talk to God, I hope you can pass on a message to God. What message do you need me to pass on? Yu Yang asked. The Dark Realm has used countless lives to wash away the sins of the past. Now, morality and hope have been restored. It's just that the people of the Central Shrine have covered up their prayers. Tyloin and I are willing to swear with our lives and souls that we only hope that the glory of God will descend upon the Dark Realm as soon as possible. This has been their prayer for tens of thousands of years. This is also the hope that we have held on to for 10,000 years. A teardrop quickly fell from the queen's eyes and shattered on the ground. I can't give you a promise, but I will pass on the message truthfully. If it's possible, I might go to the Dark Realm and verify its authenticity. Yu Yang was moved by the hope that Queen Tyloin held on to. She had been living under control for 10,000 years, but she still held onto hope. How persistent was this kind of person? How strong was she? Yu Yang didn't necessarily respect seniors, but he respected this kind of strong person who held on a hope and goal for their entire life. This kind of strength wasn't in terms of strength, but in terms of spirit. Compared to these people who held on a hope to escape from the Dark Realm, weren't the ancestors of the soaring dragon continent who fought for the survival of the younger generation, like Yu Qiu and the Tyloin couple, the same as them? It was just that the location of the battle was different, and the way they held on to hope was different. Yu Yang was the hope of the soaring dragon continent, the hope of Tong Tian Tower. He could bring Tong Tian Tower to power if the Dark Realm was also suitable. Why couldn't he bring those people to power and overthrow the rule of the Central Shrine? Yu Yang didn't have this ability at the moment. However, he had already set this goal. As long as he continued to work hard, with his talent and everyone's endless support, that day would definitely not be far away. Chapter 833. After sending off King Tyloin, Raging Flame and Bai Lu both looked at Yu Yang. Yu Yang smiled. Why are you looking at me? Bai Lu hesitated and finally asked the question in her heart. You want to go to the Dark World? The impression of the Dark World in the Heaven Realm had always been that of darkness and depravity. The Dark World meant incurable evil and depravity. Even if Bai Lu was willing to believe in Queen Tyloan, she would not completely agree with her words that the Dark World had been cleansed of evil and restored its morality. In Bai Lu's heart, there might be some good people like King Tyloan in the Dark World, but there were more depraved warriors and unrepentant thugs. Raging Flame had the same idea. If it wasn't for what she had seen and heard in Tong Tian Tower, which completely broke the shackles of her previous thoughts and her stubborn chivalrous heart, she might have even resisted. Yu Yang was not surprised by their thoughts. He was completely neutral. No one knew what happened to the Dark World. No matter what the Dark World became, it was not strange. Unless it was a god with an absolute will, the thoughts of ordinary people were actually very fragile and would change due to the environment. Under certain conditions, it was not strange for the corrupted warriors who were exiled to the Dark World to regain their morals. Furthermore, not all the people exiled to the Dark World were bad people. It was fine if it was the ancient era, but after the Central Divine Palace gained the power of exile, the people they exiled were definitely their enemies. Those people were not necessarily bad people. Without investigation, Yu Yang would not give a definition of the Dark World. At least before that. The 10,000 Dark World warriors that Yu Yang saw were not completely bad. They were just a group of chess pieces that could not struggle and get rid of control. I do want to go to the Dark World, but the plan remains the same. Yu Yang picked up a portrait on the table and smiled. Before that, let's get rid of this guy first. In the portrait, there was a strong man with red hair and red eyes. His muscles were like steel, and his face was full of arrogance. He was Yu Yang's first target, Tantai 2 Miez No. 1 subordinate, Sky Ghost. Kill Sky Ghost. The luxurious airship of the Raging Flame Bandit Group left the City of Redemption. City Master Qianhu and his wife secretly saw him off. Of course, he still acted as the City Master of Salvation City on the surface and continued to contact Elder Yu Yi as if nothing had happened. Even the cunning Tauren named Lima was released. The Tauren was not a fool. He had thought about many possibilities in the prison over the past few days. Now that he was released, he refused to leave. Instead, he took the initiative to express his goodwill to the City Lord of Qianhu City and insisted on staying in the City Lord's mansion. It was as if he wanted to atone for his crimes with his actions. The day passed, and night fell. After learning from the City Lord that the luxurious airship had left, the fish-eyed, disciplinary elder quietly stepped into the portal. After making sure that no one was following them, he came to a secret place, the Stargazing Harbor. Stargazing Harbor was not actually a bay. There was no water here. It was a large floating island. It was known as the Stargazing Harbor, mainly because it was the designated base of the outer palace of the Central Shrine. All the members of the Central Shrine who were dispatched to the Tyloan continent and a large area around it could stay here for the night. Not to mention the tens of thousands of combatants who had come here to execute King Tyloan. There would also be dozens of airships here during normal times. Now, there were more than 200 luxurious airships and combat airships parked at the Stargazing Harbor. They were densely packed together on the sky pier of the Stargazing Harbor. Elder Yu Yi passed through the heavily guarded sky pier. After several identity checks, he finally walked into the brightly lit Stargazing Fortress. You're back. What news do you have? In the main seat of the hall of the Stargazing Fortress sat a fierce-looking man with crimson hair and red eyes. Even though he was sitting, his body was much larger than the standing Elder Yu Yi. This person's imposing aura was ruthless to the extreme, and he was like a berserk lion that would swallow a person at any moment. Especially his face that was covered in muscles that were hard like iron. There was a savage and terrifying scar on it that stretched from the bridge of his nose to his cheeks, and it caused him to seem even more wild and ferocious. Master, that airship suddenly left. I am unable to determine the other party's true intentions, so I came here to report. Elder Yu Yi replied expressionlessly. Fort Master and Anbei, what do you think? The crimson-haired man, sitting on the main seat, did not speak immediately. Instead, he looked to the two sides. If we are certain that a deity has descended, there must be a secret beneath the divine execution platform that we are unable to fathom. Now that the airship has left, I don't think this is the end of the matter. On the contrary, it is a signal for us to take action. No family in the heavenly realm, or even higher existences, would openly declare war on the central shrine. If they want to stop us, they will definitely do so in order to avoid suspicion. The person who replied was a middle-aged man with a majestic appearance. He was clad in golden heavy armor. This man was not as fierce as the fierce-looking man with crimson hair and red eyes, but he still had a dignified aura, regardless of whether he was sitting upright or speaking. He had an invisible pressure of a superior being. He was the general dispatched by the central shrine to the stargazing harbor. He was also the fort master of the stargazing fortress, Taijian. Sitting quietly opposite the stargazing fortress master, General Taijian, was an old man who always maintained an elegant smile on his face. Most of the old man's hair and beard were black. Only the hair on his temples was dyed white. Instead of looking old, he looked mature and wise. With a paper fan in his hand, he looked like a wise man who stayed at home to make peace in the world. Sitting upright on the main seat, he always had a confident smile on his face. His smile was elegant, noble, and calm. When the fierce-looking man with crimson hair and red eyes looked over, the smiling wise man immediately stood up slowly and bowed slightly. His clear and magnetic voice sounded, "Master, Nanbei thinks that the departure of that luxurious airship is actually a good thing." This answer was unexpected. Even the fierce-looking man with crimson hair and red eyes paused for a moment before asking, "Tell me more details." The old wise man opened the paper fan with a swish. His movement was extremely elegant. Then he stroked his beard as if he was organizing his words. After a long time, he smiled and said, "Master, Nanbei thinks that this might be a warning signal. If we don't do anything, then the other party will really make a move. Even if it's a big clan from the upper realm or a god from the realm beyond heaven, they won't make a move immediately. No matter when everything is under certain rules. The higher the position, the more they will pay attention to the rules, even if the rules are made by them." The fisheye asked, "Since the other party has issued a warning, how should we deal with it?" The old wise man closed his fan and waved it slightly, indicating that there was no need to hurry. "We should report this to the warden. The other party's warning should be a signal. They know that we are not the ones who make the decision, so they want to communicate with the warden. Otherwise, they could just come here and kill us. There is no need for them to drive the airship away from the god's hatred execution platform." The dignified General Tai Jian suddenly stood up. "No matter what the other party's intention is, we should report it to the warden as soon as possible. After all, there is a god's will behind this." The fisheye agreed in his heart and looked at the fierce-looking man with red hair and red eyes. As long as he gave the order, the fisheye would bring the news to the warden at the fastest speed in his life. However, the fierce-looking man with red hair and red eyes did not speak. He continued to look at the old wise man as if he wanted to listen to his subordinate's opinion. The old wise man who called himself Nanbei suddenly laughed. Don't be anxious. With the vastness of Salvation City, we are definitely not the only ones who know the news of the departure of the luxurious airship. Queen Teluan or some other small characters who are secretly eyeing us will definitely make use of this opportunity to cause trouble. They will use the name of the gods to confuse us so that they can benefit from it. Therefore, what we need to do now is not just to send a letter to the warden, but also to prepare to welcome our guests. Guests? The body of the fish elder trembled slightly when he heard this, but he still remained expressionless. It was as if he would never feel anger in his life. "I will personally go out to welcome the guests." General Iron Jian had just stood up when he heard the sounds of explosions coming from outside. A look of admiration flashed in his eyes as he bowed slightly to the old wise man. "As expected of Mr. Nanbei, you know everything in the world and always think ahead of others. Iron Jian admires you. May I ask, mister, what should we do next?" The old wise man returned the bow and stroked his beard with a smile. "Castle Master, You are meticulous in your work. You have already made preparations long before the arrival of the guests. Such prudence and meticulousness are what I admire. I believe that the guests will not be able to arrive in a short time. Why don't we wait here and wait for the guests to arrive? We will then set up a banquet to welcome the guests. Ha ha. General Iron Jian looked at the fierce-looking man with red hair and red eyes who was still sitting still. Suddenly, he was shocked. So Lord Heavenly Ghost has already prepared for this. Iron Jian is ashamed. The fierce-looking man with red hair and red eyes waved his hand. Castle Master, please sit down. Since there are guests coming, there is no harm in us waiting. 10 minutes later, explosions and the sounds of various battles were still going on. It was just that compared to the beginning, it was much weaker. It was estimated that many places had already lost their resistance. After another 10 minutes, other than the star-gazing fortress, there were no more sounds in the surrounding areas. It was as if all the battles had disappeared. Only the sporadic sounds of explosions caused by the flames could be heard occasionally. The fierce-looking man with red hair and red eyes drank the blood wine without any reaction, as if he knew nothing about what was happening outside. Elder Yi stubbornly stood in the middle of the hall. He did not sit down, nor did he eat or drink. His cold face was expressionless. General Iron Jian also sat still and looked at the blood wine in his cup. There seemed to be flames burning in his eyes. The old wise man had a smile on his face. He shook his head and fanned himself with a paper fan. His movements were elegant and calm. The gate of the star-gazing fortress finally opened. A gust of hot wind that carried the smoke of war blew in. Then a figure strode in. Before he arrived, his hearty laughter had already resounded in the entire hall. Lord Heavenly Ghost, greetings to General Iron Shoulder, Elder Fisheye, and Mr. Nanbei. Is the Lionheart King also one of the guests? The old wise man, Mr. Nanbei, asked with a smile. There are many kinds of guests. The Lionheart King belongs to the kind that watches quietly and won't make things difficult for his master at any time. The Lionheart King, whose body was shining brightly, laughed out loud. The Lionheart King is a good guest, but the few guests behind him shouldn't be so easy to deal with, right? General Iron Jian suddenly stood up and looked behind the Lionheart King. There were a few more shadows there. We're the opposite of the Lionheart King. Because of our restless nature, we belong to the kind that doesn't like to watch quietly and like to make things difficult for our master. A young man wearing a strange mask walked in with big strides, accompanied by a female giant and two peerless beauties. Looking at the way he walked with his head held high, he didn't look like a guest at all. It felt more like he was returning home and walking around his own courtyard casually. He had the calmness of a guest as the host. Chapter 834. The person who came in was, of course, Yu Yang. Although he appeared to be heaven-ranked level 3, no one dared to look down on him. Raging Flame, Bai Lu, and Fallen Beauty, with a veil covering her face, were all centered around him. Even a blind man could see that this masked young man was not simple. The fierce man with red hair and red eyes was still sitting on the seat of honor. He glanced at Yu Yang, then glanced at Raging Flames and Bai Lu. Finally, he glanced at Beauty Flower from the corner of his eyes. Finally, he looked at Elder Yu Yi. Yu Yi, was he the one who defeated you? Elder Yu Yi nodded and answered honestly. Moreover, he won in speed, which I am best at. Without any treasures, beasts, or inherent skills, I was completely defeated. The old wise man, Mr. Nanshan, carefully sized up Yu Yang's body. He discovered that Yu Yang had a top-grade holy level deception ring on his left hand and a super-speed semi-god ring on his right hand. He immediately narrowed his eyes. However, his smile did not change. He turned to Lionheart King and slowly waved his fan. No wonder Lionheart King is so confident. It turns out that this friend of Lionheart King is really an incredible guest. Lionheart King laughed out loud. Lionheart has always liked crowds. I came here tonight just to join in the fun. This little friend, I have indeed met you once before. However, you have such a noble status. Although Lionheart wants to make friends with you, I have no choice but to be ashamed of my inferiority." Amidst the laughter, more than 10 figures walked into Stargazing Castle one after another. The largest group of people did not know anyone. The leader was a cool-looking man with electric arcs flashing all over his body. Although his level was not high, only heaven ranked level 4, the aura he naturally emitted was extremely pressuring. It was not weaker than Raging Flame, who was at the peak of heaven ranked level 5. His appearance made even Lionheart King, who was an uninvited guest, take a few more glances. The people behind the cool-looking man were all unfamiliar warriors around heaven ranked level 3. No one knew any of them, but they all had the same biting cold aura. It gave people a strange feeling that they were deeply hidden. Behind them, there were a few great demon kings that were full of evil aura and blazing flames. At the back of this group of people were a few heaven rankers who looked familiar. The old wise man Anbei thought deeply and immediately stood up. "Clown group, you are Yusu and Yonghui of the clown group." Yonghui was silent and pretended not to hear. Yusu had a bitter smile on his face. "Mr. Nanbei, the few of us are just passing by. So I'm sorry." Beside him, the group of 3 who surrendered, as well as Fei Huang and Hua Ban, were much more proactive. They spread out and followed behind the handsome man with electric arcs flashing all over his body. They did not show any cowardice in front of the experts of the Central Shrine. If it was in the past, they would have peed their pants in fright. However, things were different now. After being transformed by the captives, their strength had not increased much, but their courage had increased. Other than this large group of strangers, there were 2 other groups of people he was familiar with. The first was Queen Thalen and her friends. There were not many of them, only 5 of them, including Queen Thalen. Although the number of people was small, they were good friends of King Thalen and his wife. Even in the face of the experts of the Central Shrine, they dared to glare at them. The second group was out of Yu Mu's expectation. It turned out to be Qianhu, the city lord of Redemption City, and the cunning Taran Lima. Behind them was a trembling butler. "It's you? Do you know what you are doing?" Yu Mu stared coldly at the city lord of Qianhu. "Ahem, we are definitely on the side of the Central Shrine. We heard that someone came to the star-gazing fort to make trouble and damage the prestige of the shrine. Although Qianhu is weak, he has a righteous heart and can't just sit back and do nothing. So, we are here to listen to orders." The thick-skinned city lord of Qianhu replied. Although his words sounded nice, even a deaf person could tell that he was not sincere. Unless Yu Mu was mentally retarded, he would never believe a word of Qianhu's. City Lord Qian, who is very brave and smart. "However, are you sure that this is the will of the gods? Aren't you afraid that someone might impersonate the will of the gods?" Mr. Nanshan asked with a smile. "Mr. Nanshan, the will of the gods is unpredictable. Qianhu wouldn't dare to make a wild guess. I wouldn't dare to do that even if I had the guts." The city lord of Qianhu bowed and smiled apologetically. However, his actions attracted the interest of the Lionheart King. The Lionheart King nodded to himself. He felt that this thick-skinned and flexible man was quite a character. Most importantly, this man was courageous. He dared to take such a gamble in the face of the pressure of the Central Shrine. Even the Lionheart King had thought about it repeatedly before coming to the Stargazing Fort. He had analyzed the situation before deciding to come here. The city lord of Qianhu, who was appointed by the Central Shrine to guard the divine abomination execution platform, dared to come here. Although he was powerful, he had to be courageous. "Welcome, distinguished guests. Everyone knows about the Lionheart King, the city lord of Qianhu is also famous. The Queen's benevolence has brightened the Tailuan continent. However, it's a pity that I'm not familiar with the other guests. Aren't you going to introduce yourselves?" The old wise man, Mr. Nanshan, waved his paper fan confidently, his smile unchanged. He bowed to Yu Yang and the rest, as if he was a hospitable host welcoming his guests sincerely. Sky Execution never wasted words. "I'm Long Xian. I've always admired wise elders like Mr. Nanshan. If you have the time, please take care of me." The Dragon Emperor calmly returned the greeting. As for the Emperor of the Underworld and the great demon King Baruth, they couldn't be bothered to speak. After all, no matter how well they spoke, they would still be risking their lives later. Furthermore, there was nothing for them to do here. The main focus was on that brat Yu Yang. He was the main character tonight. Mr. Nanshan looked at Sky Execution, then at the Dragon Emperor. He frowned slightly, as if he couldn't figure out where they came from. No matter how good his memory was, it was impossible for him to guess that Yu Yang and Sky Execution were from the Skirage Tower. No matter how much he guessed, it was just a blind guess. However, Nanshan quickly adjusted himself and smiled at by LV and Raging Flame. You're the young princess of the Emerald Territory, right? I know your parents. I have to say, you look too much like your mother. His words made by LV grit her teeth. She had already guessed that even if her parents' death wasn't caused by this Nanshan, it was caused by his treachery. Without his support, how could the fake Emerald Lord, Pang Pei, dare to murder her father? She suppressed her anger and remained silent. As if he didn't see the anger in her eyes, Nanshan smiled and nodded at her in a friendly manner. He then looked at Raging Flame. Captain Raging Flame. Nanshan has always heard of Captain Raging Flame's chivalrous name. Seeing that Captain Raging Flame's aura is like a rainbow, it seems that you've broken through again. Congratulations. Raging Flame's answer was very simple. Bah! With her fiery personality, it was impossible for her to counterattack with a smiling face like Yu Yang. She was directly disdainful. She had a clear distinction between love and hate, fire and water. Mr. Nanshan pretended not to see it at all. He still maintained a smile on his face and bowed slightly to Yu Yang. Although the masked beauty status is noble, Nanshan's eyes are not blind. I can still see that the one in charge is you. Nanshan pays his respects to you. May I know the name of this esteemed guest? Yu Yang smiled and pretended to return the greeting, but no matter how he looked at it, he looked like a little fox. Mr. Nanshan is too polite. It's just a name. It's not enough to tell outsiders. If Mr. Nanshan doesn't mind, please call me Third Young Master. Ah, so it's the famous Third Young Master. Mr. Nanshan had never heard of Third Young Master before, but it seemed like he had heard of him for a long time. May I know why Third Young Master has come? Although Yu Yan was the same disciplinary elder as Nanshan, he could never be as hypocritical as Nanshan. In some ways, he was similar to Raging Flame. They both belonged to the type of people who spoke their mind. It's nothing big. I just want to walk around and get to know you. I also want to borrow something from you. Yu Yang took on the attitude of a guest. May I know what Third Young Master wants to borrow? General Tai Jian asked solemnly. He felt that since the other party asked, it must be an important treasure. It could even be the stargazing fort. In any case, it was something that couldn't be lent, or it must be something that would damage the reputation of the central shrine. Another possibility was to ask for King Tailuan. As long as he saved King Tailuan, wouldn't he be able to prevent this secret under the god's loathing execution platform from being leaked? Yu Yang didn't answer immediately. He just walked forward with a smile and stopped less than 3 meters in front of Yu Yan. He cupped his hands with a smile and said, "We don't dare to borrow anything valuable. We just want to find an excuse to build a relationship with the central shrine. In the heaven realm, who doesn't want to build a good relationship with you? Naturally, we are no exception. As for what you want to borrow, it's very simple. As long as you borrow Lord Sky Ghost's head, you can return it." Borrow Sky Ghost's head? Qian, who knew that today's matter wouldn't end well, but when he heard Yu Yang's words, he couldn't help but feel a little weak in the knees. As for the few friends standing beside Queen Tailuan, they almost hit their heads against the wall. Who the hell was this guy? He was too arrogant. How could he say such words? The scarlet-haired, red-eyed, ferocious man had remained silent until Yu Yang said, "Lend me your head." Only then did he laugh out loud. Not bad. These words are full of energy. I like it. Unlike those fools in the past who wanted to kill people but didn't have the courage to do so. They only knew how to assassinate people. Kid, as long as you have the ability, you can take this head at any time. Lord Sky Ghost is so generous. Yu Yang gave him a thumbs up and praised him vigorously. Then he waved his hand behind him. What are you waiting for? Lord Sky Ghost said that you could take it as you please. Why are you still so polite? We're afraid of an ambush. Other than fallen beauty, no one dared to joke with you young on the battlefield. There's definitely no ambush, but if you don't make a move, Lord Sky Ghost's reinforcements will arrive. If I remember correctly, half an hour ago, there was a guy who ran very fast and left a report. When Yu Yang said this, Sky Execution and the others were furious. If you knew that there would be reinforcements, why did you waste your breath with them? Raging Flame almost beat this kid up with a punch, but Yu Yang had a reason. He smiled and explained, I'm afraid of an ambush. Now that I've figured out, Lord Sky Ghost is open and above board. There's no ambush, so everyone can make their move. Raging Flame was very dissatisfied. She stepped forward and pushed Yu Yang away, assuming an offensive stance. Just now, you discovered that someone had sent a message. Why didn't you kill that son of a bitch? Yu Yang still had a good reason. Everyone doesn't feel any pressure. It's obvious that you can't fight it out. I'm doing this for your own good. As soon as he said this, he was immediately despised by everyone. Even the thick-skinned Qianhu city master had to admit that he was inferior to him. Chapter 835. Elder Yu Ye's figure flashed, and his fist had already landed on Raging Flame's face. His speed was 100 times faster than when he was fighting against Yu Yang. Previously, when he was fighting against Yu Yang on the streets of Salvation City, he didn't use his full strength. At least, he didn't use any treasures or beasts to assist him. Now, in addition to wearing a pair of winged wind silver boots, he also had a pair of acceleration gloves on his hands. Of course, the most important thing was that he had summoned a heaven-ranked level 5 war beast, Lightning Jet Dragon, and fused it with his body. Whether it was strength or speed, compared to when he was fighting Yu Yang, it had increased by 100 times. This kind of power was not bad, but that kind of speed beyond vision and reaction made even the Lionheart King frown. Raging Flame paused and took a few steps back. There were a few drops of blood on her nose. Gurgling, she reached out and wiped it lightly, then spat out a mouthful of blood. Not bad. You can hit my face 100 times in an instant. No wonder you're known as the fastest temple elder. But do you want to scare me to death with just the power of a mosquito bite? Elder Yu Ye's face was expressionless. When Raging Flame spoke, he disappeared again. The sound of raindrops bombarding the back of Raging Flame's head rang out. However, this time, Elder Yu Yi couldn't return to his original position calmly after finishing his attack like he did before. His fist was already in Raging Flame's hand. Raging Flame didn't look back. She turned her hand back and held Elder Yu Ye's wrist. The giant hand was as steady as an iron pincer holding the forelimb of a small flying insect. Elder Yu Yi couldn't break free at all. Do you think I'll let you hit me again and again without being able to fight back? The same trick is useless against me. Raging Flame said. Yu Yang scratched the back of his head. Why did this sound so familiar? Elder Yu Yi kicked out 100 times in an instant, hitting Raging Flame's back. Raging Flame took it head-on, twisted her waist, and turned around. Her right hand moved Elder Yu Ye's body and smashed him to the side. Boom! Elder Yu Yi was smashed into the ground by Raging Flame, more than 10 meters deep. This was not enough. Raging Flames stretched out her hand, and the dizzy Elder Yu Yi fell into her giant hands once again. Raging Flames pinched the fish's head and once again fiercely pressed it against the ground. At the same time that the fish's head smashed into the ground, she also heavily kicked it. Even though the sound of the collision was deafening, everyone present could hear the muffled sound of bones breaking. If it weren't for the fact that there was another person in front of Raging Flames, Elder Yu Yi wouldn't have been able to escape from this miserable fate of suffering. It was unknown when General Iron Shoulder had arrived in front of Raging Flame. He stretched out a hand and stopped Raging Flame's left hand from continuing to attack. Seeing that Captain Raging Flames had started fighting, the group of people behind immediately dispersed. Other than Sky Execution and the Dragon Emperor who stayed behind, the others moved around to look for opponents. They were ready to wipe out the remaining resistance in the surroundings and capture the stargazing fort. The only ones who did not move were the Lionheart King, who was quietly watching the battle, and the tenacious Tiger City Lord, who was cowering in the corner like a quail. The Sky Execution and the Dragon Emperor had a tacit understanding of the old wise man, Nanshan. As for Yu Yang, seeing that the red-haired heavenly ghost was still sitting on the ground, he immediately glared at Bai Lu. "You idiot! Hurry up and go to the treasure room to take a look. The treasures are about to be emptied." When Bai Lu heard this, she felt wronged. "You were the one who said that without your permission, no one was allowed to move. Especially those who were not strong enough. They had to obediently stand behind and accept protection." Now, she was complaining that they were not moving fast enough. She didn't have time to drop the golden beans. When she saw Fallen Beauty flying towards the inner hall, she hurriedly followed. Yu Yang secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that she was willing to leave. With this girl's strength, if they were to fight, she might be ambushed by some people with unknown intentions and be instantly killed. The Lionheart King's eyes turned between Yu Yang and the red-haired heavenly ghost. He only glanced at the battle between Raging Flame and General Iron Shoulder, Sky Execution Dragon Emperor, and Nanshan. He knew that what truly determined the outcome of the battle was. It was these two people. Boom! General Iron Shoulder caught Raging Flame's heavy fist with his hand and kicked her out of the castle gate. At the same time, he chased after her and punched her. Faster than him was Fish Eye, who drilled out from the ground. Scram, Bone Spirit. The moment Raging Flame flew out, she grabbed Fish Eye's neck and used it as a broom. She swept Fish Eye across the iron gate and destroyed a large part of the wall. As for General Tai Jian, who had taken advantage of the chaos to chase after Raging Flames and hit her lower abdomen, he did not have the upper hand. Raging Flames made an extremely exquisite turn and kicked out with a miraculous skill, hitting Tai Jian's chin. If she did not go through the gate of life and death and the heaven stairway, Raging Flame would not be General Iron Shoulder's opponent. Now, Raging Flame was like a completely different person. On the other side, the battle was even more intense. Mr. Nanshan, who was known as the Wise One and had the strength of Heaven Stage Level 5, was actually completely suppressed by a Heaven Stage Level 4 Sky Execution and a Heaven Stage Level 3 Dragon Emperor. This kind of battle not only stunned Lionheart King, but also greatly exceeded the expectations of the red-haired Sky Ghost. If Sky Execution and Dragon Emperor had super strong treasures and beasts, it would be fine. But they didn't. They completely relied on their incomprehensible battle power and exquisite battle skills to continuously push Nanshan back, making him unable to stand firm and attack. The two of them, who were at a lower level, were completely unafraid of Nanshan's high-level pressure. If the red-haired Sky Ghost and Lionheart King knew that Yu Yang had already used 3 Temple Elders to train Sky Execution and Dragon Emperor, they probably wouldn't be so surprised. Sky Execution and Dragon Emperor had already fought against the Temple Elders until they were sick of it. How could they still have any fear? How exciting! Third Young Master. You are an outstanding young man. But do you think you could defeat me like this? The red-haired Sky Ghost was still sitting upright. Can I? Yu Yang pretended to be puzzled and asked. Haha, Lionheart King, do you want to make a bet with me? The red-haired Sky Ghost suddenly looked at Lionheart King. What do you want to bet? Lionheart King asked. I bet that you will fail. Within 10 moves, I will be able to kill the third young master that you think highly of. The red-haired Sky Ghost smiled confidently, but his smile pulled at his scars, making him look even more ferocious. Although gambling is not Lionheart's hobby, but as the saying goes, a little gambling is good for the mood. How about Lionheart bet with Lord Sky Ghost? Lionheart King laughed loudly, as if he didn't hear the hidden meaning in the Sky Ghost's words. He turned his head and looked at Yu Yang. Third young master, Lionheart is betting on you this time. You won't go easy on me, right? I will also bet with you. Within 10 moves, I will take his head. Yu Yang loved to join in the fun. Lionheart King wanted to say that it was impossible, but in the end, he held it in. Killing Sky Ghost in 10 moves, was this really not a joke? The Sky Ghost was a famous person from 10,000 years ago. He had fought with Faye when Li's conquering army. How could an old ghost that could survive that kind of bloody battlefield be killed in 10 moves? The red-haired sky ghost was stunned. Then, he laughed maniacally and cheered repeatedly. Outside the gate, General Tai Jian held his chin and stood up. After being kicked by raging flames, he felt that his teeth were a little loose. However, he was still confident that he could take down this Captain Raging Flames, who was famous for her chivalry. General Tai Jian tore off the big red cloak behind him and erupted with all his strength. If you think that I, Tai Jian, am only at the 5th level of Heaven's stage, then you are wrong. The strong aura that he erupted formed a shockwave that shook the entire stargazing fortress. Chapter 836. Surrender or Die. The red-haired heavenly ghost looked at raging flames and revealed a sinister and terrifying smile. Bah! Raging Flame's answer was still so firm. In fact, other than Yu Yang, no man could shake her will, and no man could influence her decision. Long before she met Yu Yang, Raging Flames, the female giant, was a warrior who would rather break than bend and die than surrender. She adhered to the path of chivalry, was not afraid of power, and ignored all threats and temptations. If she hadn't met Yu Yang, she would never have realized what change and compromise were. Other than Yu Yang's angry glare, she didn't care about anything else in the world, especially after comprehending the sovereign's will. There was no one of the opposite sex that could shake her iron will. She roared at the sky, like a thunderstorm. The blood-red dragon tattoos on her body shone like a blaze, and countless extremely high-temperature flames gushed out from her body, burning fiercely. The image of the ancient dragon appeared above her head, almost bursting the entire stargazing castle. The shock wave from the explosion was so shocking that it was as if the supporting stone pillars were broken in the middle. The floor tiles on the ground were overturned and thrown towards the walls. The hot air almost suffocated everyone present. Even Sky Execution, Dragon Emperor, and Southern Wolf, who were in a bitter battle, had no choice but to stop fighting and avoid the energy impact of the flames. City Lord Qian Hu and the others almost fainted, cowering in a corner of the hall. It was as if the end of the world had come. Other than the Lionheart King and Yu Yang, no one else could stand still. Facing the collapse of the hall and the red-haired heavenly ghost, Raging Flames was furious to the limit. Dragon raises its head. Her roar was like the cry of thousands of troops and horses. The greatest power she had accumulated through the design of Yu Yang for her, and later improved by Shui Wuxia, Princess Sisai, and even the Night Empress. The first move of the Dragon 3 style, the dragon raises its head, burst out. The energy that erupted from Raging Flames' right fist transformed into a blood-red ancient dragon head. It opened up and devoured the red-haired heavenly ghost. The red-haired heavenly ghost was slightly moved. This time, it stretched out a hand. The flaming dragon raised its head and slammed into his palm. The ancient dragon's head, which could devour all things, was pulverized by his palm. At the same time, Raging Flame had already turned her body. With her right leg as the axis, she raised her left leg high and slashed at the red-haired heavenly ghost's shoulder like a sharp axe that weighed 10,000 kilograms. It hit the weakest point between the shoulder and the head, the neck. This chain of attacks was the second form of the third style of the dragon. Dragon swings its tail. The flaming female giant who possessed the dragon bloodline inheritance could level a small mountain with a full-powered attack from the dragon swings its tail. Furthermore, this was a surprise attack that was connected to the aftermath of the first move. Its power was enhanced and unexpected by the previous dragon raises its head. Even the crimson-haired heavenly ghost, who had fought countless battles on the battlefield, was caught off guard by the sudden attack of the dragon's tail. Boom! The entire stargazing fortress trembled. The ground cracked, dust and gravel erupted like a volcanic eruption. Huge broken stone pillars were like straws being blown up by a strong wind, flying everywhere. The stargazing fortress had not collapsed yet. But the scene inside was more terrifying than the end of the world. A ripple appeared, and the smoke and dust quickly dispersed. The Lionheart King's eyes widened, but his pupils were contracting. He saw an incredible scene. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost was still sitting, but the chair in the ground under his feet had already turned into smoke. He, who was suspended above the deep pit, had directly endured the surprise attack of the flaming female giant's dragon swings its tail. His body was unharmed, and he could even maintain his original relaxed posture of sitting on the chair. Too powerful, as expected of the crimson-haired heavenly ghost who fought against the conquering army back then, as expected of the number one subordinate of the Scarlet Warden, Tantai Tumi. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost pushed with his palm, and the flaming female giant flew backward. She barely managed to stand. She staggered a few steps and retreated to Yu Yang's side. The flaming female giant turned her head to look at Yu Yang, who was standing quietly with a normal expression, and murmured, "I'm sorry." Then, she fell head first onto the ground. The Lionheart King's pupils contracted again. He did not understand how this flaming female giant had fallen to the ground with such heavy injuries. However, he was sure that this crimson-haired heavenly ghost did not make a move before the surprise attack. Could it be that just a gentle push of his palm could severely injure the flaming female giant, who had inherited the dragon blood and had an extremely tenacious life force? If that was really the case, then this crimson-haired heavenly ghost was too powerful, right? A crimson-haired heavenly ghost in the central shrine was already so powerful. Even if he became the Regent Emperor, wouldn't he still be a puppet? The Lionheart King's thoughts flashed through his mind, and he felt a great sense of frustration. The thing that he had been pursuing for his entire life seemed so fragile in front of the strong. Not bad. I thought I could kill this female giant with one blow. Her life force is really too strong. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost laughed loudly. The scars on his cheeks pulled as he laughed, making him look even more ferocious and terrifying. City Lord Qian Hu was hiding in the corner, was so frightened that he vomited. Although Qian Hu did not eat anything before this, the acid in his stomach still poured out, and he almost vomited all his bile. The Lionheart King immediately looked at Yu Yang. He could not help but be stunned when he found that this young man was as calm as usual. "How is it, Lionheart King? With your strength, it's such a pity to bet on the wrong person. Do you want to come to the central shrine? I, the heavenly ghost, can promise you that I will not pursue the previous matter. With your strength, wisdom, and ambition, you can definitely show off your skills if you come to our side. I, the heavenly ghost, only like to follow Lord Tantai in the everlasting hatred prison. You don't have to do this. With your strength, Lionheart King, it's not a problem for you to be a deputy shrine master. If you're confident, you can even challenge for the position of shrine master. Lord Tantai and I will support you. It's too boring to be the Regent Emperor. Being a leader and being clean will only make people more undisciplined and degenerate. Moreover, when you truly enter the upper echelons of the Heaven Realm, don't you still need to find a backer to stand firm? In the Heaven Realm, is there a stronger and more stable backer than the Central Shrine? The crimson-haired heavenly ghost stood up and stretched his body. But before the battle, he patiently persuaded the Lionheart King. The Lionheart King had to admit that this persuasion was very attractive. It was indeed dangerous to bet on the wrong person. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost was much stronger than he had imagined. If he continued to persist and chose the wrong side, he would easily lose. If he went over now, everything would turn for the better. In the future, he would not only have an unshakable backer, but also fame and fortune. The only regret was that he would no longer be able to realize his dreams, and he would probably no longer be free. The Lionheart King looked at Yu Yang for the second time. He found that this young man's expression was the same as before, as if he did not hear the crimson-haired heavenly ghost's words, nor did he see the shocking power of the crimson-haired heavenly ghost. The Lionheart King took a deep, deep breath of hot air, causing a slight burning pain in his lungs. This was the most difficult decision in his life. The future was right in front of him. The path he would take in the future, whether it was right or wrong, success or failure, depended on today. If he made the right choice, he would be successful and famous in the future. If he made the wrong choice, he would be doomed eternally and die. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost waited patiently until the Lionheart King completely calmed down. Then he smiled and asked, "How is it? Have you made up your mind?" The Lionheart King nodded vigorously and bowed. "Thank you. I still feel that third young master is more like my future master." Hearing this, the crimson-haired heavenly ghost's eyes narrowed. Like a needle, there seemed to be an extremely small electric current flashing in his squinted eyes. After a while, the crimson-haired heavenly ghost laughed loudly. His voice shook the entire stargazing fortress. Then he suddenly stopped laughing like a knife. He looked at the Lionheart King and asked, "Can you tell me why?" "There's not a lot of reasons. It's just a hunch." The Lionheart King smiled a little self-deprecatingly. "I, the Lionheart King, have always been a rational person, but I've finally made an exception today. Heavenly Ghost, you are indeed very strong, but I can feel your strength, but I can't feel third young master's strength. What really made me make up my mind was your persuasion. Is there a problem with my persuasion?" The crimson-haired heavenly ghost asked curiously. "There's no problem at all." The Lionheart King shook his head. He pointed at Yu Yang, who was keeping raging flames into the grimoire world. "Third young master didn't persuade me. What does this mean? He doesn't care which side I stand on, but you do. If you have absolute confidence, then you won't care about my inclination, just like him." "Well said, but you miscalculated one thing." The crimson-haired heavenly ghost laughed. Third young master didn't say anything because he knew that no matter what he said, you wouldn't believe him. So he didn't say anything and made you suspicious instead. "Lionheart King, you don't have any shortcomings, but you're too suspicious. You should know that in the heaven realm, people who are too suspicious usually don't live long." "Is that so?" The Lionheart King's expression didn't change. He clasped his hands together and increased the energy in his body. "Heavenly Ghost, do you know what I want to say? Because third young master ignored your calmness, I finally comprehended the divine sense that I couldn't understand or break through for nearly 1,000 years. From now on, I, Lionheart, also have an unshakable will. Don't try to use words to sway my mind. It's useless. Not just me, even this sky execution and that long Xian beside me can't be affected by your words. Then I'll show you that even those who have comprehended Jizuns are just small bugs in front of me, the heavenly ghost." The crimson-haired heavenly ghost's figure flashed. He appeared behind the Dragon Emperor in sky execution. The Dragon Emperor immediately raised his dragon shield and successfully blocked the crimson-haired heavenly ghost's surprise attack. As for sky execution, he was even faster than the crimson-haired heavenly ghost. The lightning fist that carried the power of destruction had already accurately bombarded the crimson-haired heavenly ghost's left ear. Lionheart King saw this and understood. The reason why these two low-leveled warriors were able to force the higher-leveled Southern Wolf to retreat was because they had unshakable willpower. They were able to completely disregard their opponent's pressure and unleash 100% of their strength. Unlike other heaven rankers who would be completely suppressed when facing a higher-leveled opponent and not be able to unleash even half of their strength. The true Jizuns could even face a strong enemy like the crimson-haired heavenly ghost calmly and attack with all their strength. Insignificant skill. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost's ear was punched. If it was someone else, they would have already collapsed with heavy injuries. However, he didn't feel anything and sent sky execution flying with a slap. He then stomped on the ground, causing it to explode. The Dragon Emperor, who was using the dragon shield to defend himself, was sent flying into the sky. Sky execution smashed the hard wall of the stargazing castle with a loud bang. He flew out. As for the Dragon Emperor, he smashed through the ceiling of the hall and continued to rush to a higher floor with broken stones and bricks. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost could have chased after him just now, but he didn't because Yu Yang was already standing in front of him. Yu Yang looked calmly at the crimson-haired heavenly ghost who had shocked everyone present. There was no fear or anger. His gaze was like that of a random passerby on a busy street in the city. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost snorted. He didn't attack Yu Yang immediately. Instead, he took a step and walked past Yu Yang, appearing behind the Lionheart King in a flash. Lionheart, this is your last chance. If you don't surrender, you will die. Son Griffin. The Lionheart King's answer was to summon the golden griffin that was as mighty as the sun and fuse it with his body. He then condensed a sun that could fill the entire stargazing castle with energy and pushed it toward the crimson-haired heavenly ghost. If his golden griffin king hadn't advanced to the sun griffin king realm, the Lionheart King wouldn't have been so confident. However, he had used a large piece of territory to exchange for a sun gem and successfully promoted his guardian war beast. With the sun griffin king, the Lionheart King wasn't afraid even if he had to fight the crimson-haired heavenly ghost. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire stargazing castle exploded on the spot. The dome in the sky disappeared, and the surrounding hard and extremely thick walls were reduced to rubble. City Master Chi Hu and the others who were originally hiding in the corner had long been thrown to an unknown place like dust. There were only 3 people left on the scene. One was the Lionheart King himself, who was attacking with all his might. The other was the calm Yu Yang. The third was the crimson-haired heavenly ghost who looked completely fine after taking a full blow from the Lionheart King. The Lionheart King slowly turned around and saw that the crimson-haired heavenly ghost standing behind him was completely unharmed. Even its clothes weren't tattered at all. He couldn't help but feel a trace of despair. This crimson-haired heavenly ghost was too strong. He had surpassed all king-level heaven rankers and was close to the emperor-level heaven queen. His guardian war beast had advanced to the sun griffin king, and before the battle, he had comprehended the will of the gods. But even so, the crimson-haired heavenly ghost was still unharmed. How could he defeat such a powerful enemy? The Lionheart King looked at Yu Yang for the 3rd time. He felt that he had no other way. He could only rely on this young man. He had originally thought that he could still play a role in the battlefield. Who knew that in front of a true powerhouse, even the sun impact that he was so proud of was completely useless? Just as the Lionheart King was feeling disheartened, Yu Yang suddenly laughed. This laughter was very light, but it was like a clear spring appearing in the desert, and also like a ray of light breaking through the darkness. The Lionheart King suddenly felt touched. He had never looked forward to anyone so much. Could it be that this young man really had a way to defeat the crimson-haired heavenly ghost? Could such a powerful crimson-haired heavenly ghost really be defeated? Was this ridiculously young human boy really worth looking forward to? I finally figured it out. Ripple inherent skill, shockwave domain, and energy-absorbing demon insect war beast. No wonder it can eliminate any attack. Yu Yang said slowly. The crimson-haired heavenly ghost's previously arrogant expression gradually darkened as Yu Yang said more and more. In the end, there was even an irrepressible rage. This was because Yu Yang had revealed a big secret that even the Lionheart King was shocked by. Yu Yang maintained a very annoying smile as he reached out to brush the sand and stones off his shoulders. His voice rang clearly in the ruins of the stargazing castle. Moreover, there were 2 heavenly ghosts playing tricks in the battle. I knew it. How could the all-out attacks of Raging Flames, Sky Execution, and the Lionheart King be completely ignored? Why was the heavenly ghost still so arrogant in the face of a disadvantageous situation? I finally figured it out. It turns out that the heavenly ghost and sky demon are never separated. You have always been fighting as 2 people. Really, don't think that I can't see you just because you look black. That's right, but what you don't know is that everyone who knows this secret is dead. Behind the crimson-haired heavenly ghost, there was a shadow that looked exactly like the crimson-haired heavenly ghost. Chapter 837. Lionheart King saw this and suddenly understood. Why was the red-haired sky ghost so ridiculously powerful? It turned out that there were two other people besides the wave inherent skill and shockwave domain. If Third Young Master hadn't pointed it out, this secret would have continued to be buried among the corpses of the defeated. However, even if he knew the truth, how could Third Young Master defeat the Sky Ghost and Sky Demon working together? Not only did the two twin brothers look exactly the same, they also had the wave's inherent skill and shockwave domain. Combined with the energy-absorbing demon insect beast, they were able to ignore raging flames and Sky Execution's attacks. Even Yu Yang's son was useless against them. How could he defeat the Sky Ghost and Sky Demon? Before Lionheart King could think about this question, he suddenly felt the shadow of death looming over him. A fist landed heavily on the back of his heart. Then, another fist came from the front, and, at the same time, it hit the position of the heart. The twin brothers, the Sky Ghost and Sky Demon, didn't attack Third Young Master first, but him? Lionheart King was shocked. He could no longer maintain the sovereign's will he had just comprehended and wavered. Lionheart King did not choose to fight back. Instead, he braced his body that had been punched, swallowed the blood in his throat, and fled as fast as he could. On the contrary, a shadow brushed past him. Lionheart King saw it clearly. It was Sky's Execution, who had sent the red-haired Sky Ghost flying with a punch. What was Sky's Execution trying to do? One Sky Ghost was enough to send him flying, and now there were two. Was he going to die? I'll return your punch. Heavenly Retribution brought with it a sky full of electric arcs, and its fist roared like thunder, completely breaking through the sound barrier in the air. It was 100 times faster than sound, cleverly brushing past Lionheart King's body and accurately hitting the left ear of the first red-haired Sky Ghost. This punch was exactly the same as the previous one. Whether it was the move, the target, or the suddenness, it was exactly the same. The only difference was that it was more powerful and faster. It was clearly Sky Execution's strongest attack. The red-haired Sky Ghost that was hit produced a ripple of energy in its ear. But as soon as it appeared, it instantly stopped moving. Lionheart King turned his head in astonishment and discovered that Yu Yang's body was emitting specks of energy, turning the entire space into a night sky, making everything abnormally quiet. Even energy fluctuations were unable to form. He immediately understood that the scarlet-haired heavenly ghost's shockwave domain and the Third Young Master's star-shaped domain had already come to an end. Third Young Master's domain, which resembled a starry sky, had destroyed Sky Demon's shockwave domain. When the shockwave domain failed to form, Lionheart King discovered that the originally invincible Sky Ghost, under the attack of Sky Execution, was sent flying like a meteorite, smashing deep into the ground. It turned out that the Sky Demon was not invincible, as long as the shockwave field was broken. In an instant, the Lionheart King's dying embers were reignited, and they burned 1,000,000 times more fiercely. The other Sky Demon, who looked exactly like Sky Ghost, was enraged. He kicked God's Retribution in the stomach. As God's Retribution spat out blood and flew backward, he caught up with him as fast as lightning. He raised his fist and exploded with all his strength, ready to smash God's Retribution's head. Lionheart King was filled with hatred. He had only been watching the Third Young Master and Sky Demon's domain clash, and had missed the chance to save Sky Demon. If this Sky Demon with impressive attack power died, it would have a significant impact on the entire battle. He wished he could use his fastest speed, but he was too far away and could not save Sky Demon in time. He could only watch helplessly as the Sky Demon punched down. Bang! The sound of a hard object colliding rang out. A person flew out from the rubble on the ground, holding a dazzling dragon shield. He stood in front of Sky Demon and blocked the fatal blow. It was the Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Emperor's arms were numb from the Sky Demon's immense strength. His internal organs churned, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as the Sky Demon was about to punch him a second time, Lionheart King had already arrived, the sun blazing in his hand. Without the protection of the shockwave field, the Sky Demon no longer dared to take the blow head-on like before. He retreated like a wisp of smoke. Although Lionheart King's attack had missed, he was so excited that he looked up to the sky and roared. His confidence had returned. Gold feather. A pair of giant griffin wings grew out of Lionheart King's back, and the wings folded into a ball. While it protected the Dragon Emperor and Sky Execution, it also expanded violently, directly sending the red-haired heavenly ghost flying over to take 3 steps back. Thousands of golden feathers shot out like a storm, forcing the red-haired Sky Demon back, and formed a gold feather field that was like thousands of blades to protect him. Lionheart King looked at the red-haired Sky Demon and confidently challenged him. I also have a field. Let's fight it out. The red-haired Sky Demon nodded. As you wish. But the moment he spoke, the Sky Demon silently appeared behind Lionheart King and punched him in the waist. As Lionheart King dodged in pain, the Sky Demon punched him in the chin. Boom! Sky Demon condensed a ball of lightning with both hands, passing through the other side of Lionheart King's waist and hitting the red-haired Sky Demon's armpit. The Dragon Emperor's dragon shield smashed into the Sky Demon's right kneecap, causing the Sky Demon, who was chasing Lionheart King, to tremble in pain. Taking advantage of the two of them holding him back, Lionheart King avoided the most dangerous attack. This time, he didn't escape again. Instead, he launched an angry counterattack. Now he knew that if he joined forces with Sky Demon and Dragon Emperor, they could complement each other's weaknesses. Only then could they defeat the Sky Demon and Sky Demon's tacit attacks. Even if the Sky Demon and Sky Demon brothers didn't have the shock field, they couldn't fight one against two alone. Lionheart King's energy exploded, and the gold feather field blazed like the sun. It directly forced the Sky Demon and Sky Demon to retreat. Stroking his aching chin and waist, Lionheart King thought that it was a close call. If not for Sky Demon and Dragon Emperor's timely rescue, he would have lost miserably. On the contrary, the Sky Demon and Sky Demon brothers, who were repeatedly attacked by Lionheart King, Sky Demon, and the Dragon Emperor, showed no signs of pain. Sky Demon, who let Sky Demon punch through his left ear, had ripples of energy in his muscles, quickly recovering to their original state. Even the power of Sky Demon's retribution in his ear was sucked away by the energy-sucking demon insect until it finally disappeared without a trace. The energy-sucking demon insect even helped the Sky Demon recover some of its energy. Let's go together. Lionheart King hadn't said this to anyone for almost 1,000 years. But against the Sky Demon and Sky Demon brothers, he was a fool who fought alone. In fact, the Sky Demon brothers always fought two against one. The starlight around Yu Yang increased. One after another, constellations were born. All kinds of energy, blessings, and influences were born. Even Lionheart King and the Sky Demon brothers thought that Yu Yang's field was the starry field. Only Sky Demon and the Dragon Emperor knew that Yu Yang's field was creation. Right now, he was only imitating Night Empress' starry field, using the creation field to create a starry sky. Kill. Lionheart King, who had received the blessings, was extremely confident. The longer the third young master's starry field, the stronger the blessings would be. With such a helper, why would they be afraid of Sky Demon? The Sky Demon brothers, who felt their field being suppressed and their strength weakening, knew that things were not going well. They had to end the battle quickly, or else it would be dangerous. Both sides attacked each other without holding back. Fists rained down on each other's vital parts. Due to the crazy attacks of the 5 superpower houses, the ruins of the stargazing castle burst into an unprecedented explosion. For suns, 2 lightning balls, and a ball of dragon flames collided with the 8 blood-colored energy balls, and then caused an earth-shattering explosion. City Master Tenacious Tiger woke up from the shock and realized that he was not dead yet. However, he had fallen on a burning battleship 10 kilometers away from the stargazing fortress. His butler, who had a life force stronger than a cockroach, was not dead either. His body was stuck upside down on the deck. It looked like he was in a much better state than the Minotaur who was hanging upside down on the mast and covered in blood. At least this fellow was still snoring, while the Minotaur was gasping for air. At the very least, he was half dead from the shockwave. He sat up with great effort, ignoring the bleeding on his head, and opened his eyes to look at the stargazing fortress. The stargazing fortress no longer existed. There was a huge crater with a radius of 5 kilometers. Queen Teluan and the others were scattered on the ground 7 or 8 kilometers away. No one knew if they were dead or alive. There were only 3 people left standing. One was Yu Yang. The other 2 were the Sky Demon and Sky Demon brothers. The Sky Demon brothers were injured, but they were much better than the Lionheart King and Sky Execution. The Lionheart King was now like a bald peacock. He tried to stand up again, but the ribs that pierced through his chest and the concussion in his head made him dizzy and weak. Not far below him, Sky Execution was sitting on the ground, trying to recover, as if he wanted to fight again. The Dragon Emperor supported himself with a shield and wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth with a grave expression. Yu Yang was floating in the air, holding the unconscious Bai Lu in his hand. Bai Lu was still hugging a shiny box. It seemed like she did not forget Yu Yang's instructions, even though she was unconscious. High up in the sky, a person descended like a fairy descending from the heavens. It was Fallen Beauty. As soon as she appeared, the whole place was filled with a fragrance, and flower petals fell like snow. Because of her appearance, the whole tragic battlefield seemed to have turned into a fragrant garden. Fortunately, I ran fast. That was close. Fallen Beauty patted her chest in relief. The veil on her face was not blown off. In fact, there was not even a speck of dust on her. Since the last time she successfully fused Swift Finger Light Tooth, Spiral Aurora, and Light Dragon Spirit, and broke through in Yu Yang's energy field, she had a glimpse of the God Realm. Her strength had improved by leaps and bounds. Die! The Sky Demon, who was covered in blood and was no longer as powerful as before, pointed with his finger, and a fierce blood-colored light beam shot out at high speed, piercing through the space between Fallen Beauty's eyebrows. Too slow. Fallen Beauty raised her hand. The 8 dragon-headed Aurora spiraled into a curved ring, surrounding the largest dragon-headed Aurora. The counterattack was thousands of times faster than the blood-colored beam of light. After swallowing up the blood-colored beam of light, it kept bombarding the heavenly ghoul face gate. That kind of immeasurable speed and power made the Lionheart King's eyes twitch. This was because Fallen Beauty had casually raised her hand and released the Death Aurora, which directly sent the Sky Demon flying 10,000 meters away. For the first time, the Sky Demon cried out in pain. Even when the Sky Punishment had bombarded his left ear and the lightning force had penetrated his brain, it did not make him cry out in pain. The Dragon Monarch laughed. So, the Paragons will could be used like this. The Lionheart King asked in surprise, what? After asking, he suddenly understood. The power of this masked beauty's attack was not as powerful as his son, but why could she hurt the Sky Demon? The reason was that her energy light beam was filled with her killing will. In other words, her will and the energy of the attack were one. The Sky Demon's Wave's talent could not eliminate the impact of this damage, and he had to bear the full power of the attack. That was why he seemed to be in so much pain. After the Lionheart King understood, it was as if a bigger window had opened in front of him, and he suddenly felt enlightened. It turned out that the true and unshakable Paragon's will was omnipresent. Whether it was maintaining one state of mind or attacking, it was always one. He had only just touched the threshold. The Sky Demon appeared behind Fallen Beauty. His sneak attacks caused the Lionheart King to be hit again and again, unable to dodge at all. Fallen Beauty did not turn back. The fragrance of her body became even stronger, and a snow fox girl appeared. She waved a fragrant energy vortex, enveloping the Sky Demon. The vortex disappeared in a flash. After another 3 seconds, the powerful Sky Demon was actually transported 10,000 meters away, and he fell to the ground in a sorry state. An attack that doesn't require power? The Lionheart King was dumbfounded. This kind of special battle had completely overturned his understanding of battles in the past. A combination of the Holy Beast's will and unique talent, as well as teleportation. The Dragon Monarch chuckled. It's just a Holy Beast. If it's a divine beast, then wouldn't it be? The Lionheart King felt that he really needed to refresh his thinking now. Once the divine beast will appears, it will represent death. The Dragon Monarch said with certainty. As if to confirm his words, the Sky Demon condensed 2 blood-red energy balls, preparing to attack Fallen Beauty from afar. He could see that this opponent's strength was not very strong. It was just that her realm was high and her attack speed was fast. In other words, she had not grown up yet, just like that third young master. She was not even at Heaven Stage Level 3. No matter how fast she would be annihilated by the energy shock wave of Heaven Stage Level 6 and above. At the moment when the Sky Demon threw the energy ball, a crack suddenly appeared in the sky. It was as if a blade had pierced through time and space, splitting the sky in half. The Sky Demon was shouting crazily. The Sky Demon turned around in shock and found that there was a 100-meter-tall golden snake demon behind him. She waved her giant golden blade and slashed down. This scene was so familiar. It was as if it had been 10,000 years since the slash that came from the battlefield. It seemed to have passed through time and space and reappeared in front of him. Under the gaze of the Lionheart King, the Dragon Monarch, and the Chinhu City Lord, a little snake demon Loli appeared out of nowhere. She waved the blade in her hand, and with an unstoppable slash, she cut the Sky Demon's body in half. From the shoulders, all the way down to the waist, all the inherent skills and domain power, all the beasts and treasures were useless. Just like in the past, the 6-armed serpent demon war god appeared, and with a single slash, it split the heavens and the earth into 2. The only difference was that the snake demon war god, bathed in blood, was already exhausted. Although he had killed dozens of Sky Ghost companions with a single slash, his strength had been reduced to the point that it was not enough to kill Sky Ghost. Thus, the heavily injured Sky Ghost escaped death. Today it reappeared, but it was a full-strength attack. The opponent was at his peak, reproducing the slash from back then. This time, it would definitely not be as lucky as last time. The red-haired Sky Demon's eyes revealed endless despair and fear. It's over. Chapter 838. Sky Demon stood up. First, he stared blankly at the red-haired Sky Ghost body, split into 2, and fell from the sky, all the way to the bottom of the star-gazing castle ruins. He did not need to see it with his eyes. Just from the telepathy of the twin brothers, he knew that Sky Demon was already dead from that slash. It had nothing to do with the body being split into 2. What the opponent killed was only Sky Demon's soul. The moment the sky was torn apart, this result was already determined. When Little Winley flew towards him, he immediately woke up, speed that he did not have before. Turn around and escape. Sky Demon could be enemies with anyone in the world, but he was the same as Sky Demon. He feared this little Lamia lowly from the bottom of his heart. That year, the image of the snake demon war god had already left an indelible mark of fear in his soul. Even after tens of thousands of years had passed, it did not decrease at all. Nan Bei, who came out of nowhere, madly pounced towards Little Winley. The loyal and devoted Nan Bei attempted to use his own life to cover Sky Demon's escape. Little Winley pointed with her blade and bound Nan Bei in midair. Under the gaze of Lionheart King, who shook his head and sighed, the little Lamia lowly used the simplest slash to instantly kill the scheming Nan Bei. In the face of absolute power, all schemes and plots were useless. After countless times of growth, Xiao Wenli, who could even pierce through the seal in the black hole space to save Empress Fei Wenli, was no longer someone that a mere Nan Shan could stop. Although there was still a certain distance between her and the Serpent Demon Princess, who was invincible in the Heaven Realm, the difference wouldn't be too big. What shocked the Lionheart King the most wasn't the little Lamia lowly who instantly killed Sky Ghost. It was the third young master who had not made a move yet. Lionheart King knew that the third young master was definitely the strongest one. It was just that he had not made a move yet, so he could not estimate the third young master's true strength. In the sky, The Gemini constellation shone with a brilliant light. More stars, as if listening to someone's summons, fell one after another, forming an incomparably vast starry sky labyrinth. In the eyes of the spectators, although Sky Demon escaped at an extremely fast speed, he never flew out of the starry sky labyrinth. No matter how Sky Demon persisted in flying in a straight line, he was making turns in the maze. Furthermore, when the Sky Demon stopped, the Lionheart King discovered that the Sky Demon ironically stood at the original starting point. In other words, the Sky Demon had been running for a long time, but he had never left the starting point. Little One Li did not give chase. She returned to Yu Yang's side. Accompanied by Fallen Beauty and Little One Li, under the Lionheart King's astonished gaze, Yu Yang grabbed a handful of stars in the sky. He flicked his wrist. It was even more casual than a child shooting beads. However, after those stars left Yu Yang's palm, they immediately sped up. They sped up by 1,000 times and shot into the starry sky labyrinth, shooting towards the Sky Demon. Their speed became faster and faster, turning from a speck of starlight to a long pillar of starlight. It was so fast that even the Lionheart King's eyes could not see it clearly. No matter how the Sky Demon tried to dodge or escape, those high-speed flying stars would always hit his body with incomparable accuracy. The Sky Demon roared. Regardless of everything, he overdrew himself, surpassing his original Heaven Stage Level 7 beginner, reaching the peak of Heaven Stage Level 7. He used an unprecedented strength to protect his body, using the Wave Inherent skill to protect his body, and took on the stars shot by Yu Yang. However, the Lionheart King was surprised to see that it was completely useless. The Sky Demon's body was as weak as cardboard, and those stars were like arrows, easily piercing through the Sky Demon's body. One by one, the stars pierced through the Sky Demon's body, making muffled popping sounds. Looking at the Sky Demon's expression, he could not believe it at all. Even though his body was pierced, and his arm was pierced, he still had a shocked expression of "this can't be real." Yu Yang raised his hand and condensed a star whirlpool that looked like a galaxy. He casually threw it. He threw the incomparably vast whirlpool that submerged billions of stars onto the top of the Sky Demon's head. The star whirlpool was spinning, and the Sky Demon's hair, skin, flesh, and bones were all crushed into pieces. Even his energy and soul could not struggle free. After a series of ups and downs, he was finally completely swallowed by the black hole formed by the whirlpool. Seeing this scene, the Lionheart King could not help but shiver. God! The term that flashed through the Lionheart King's mind was this kind of supreme existence. Seeing Yu Yang kill the Sky Demon in an instant with just a wave of his hand, the Lionheart King suddenly understood what the difference between him and the other party was. That was the difference between a human and a god. It was a realm that could never be approached, let alone surpassed. Even though the Lionheart King also knew that in order to kill the Sky Demon in an instant, Yu Yang had done a lot before this, such as seeing through the opponent's inherent skill, domain, and beast weaknesses, thinking of a way to suppress it, and even spending a long time condensing the starry sky domain, and so on. He only killed the Sky Demon in an instant when the time was right. However, just this alone was terrifying enough. The Lionheart King admitted that even if he used all his strength, he would not be able to defeat a Sky Demon or a Sky Demon. If he did not break the Shockwave domain, he might not even be able to achieve a draw. However, the Shockwave domain was broken by the other party. The Ripple Inherent skill that did not assist in attack, and the Beast's weaknesses were also seen by the third young master. Even the Divine Beast Lamia that killed the Sky Demon was also owned by him. In today's battle at the Stargazing Castle, if not for the third young master, everyone would have fallen into despair under the Shockwave domain of the Sky Demon and died without a burial ground. Third young master, Qian, who is here. I am willing to be your slave and listen to your orders. City Master Qian, who flew over and hurriedly expressed his attitude. He was afraid that the Lionheart King would make the first move. The Lionheart King looked at him in disdain. Do I need to be so lowly? One must know that a servant will always be a servant, and a friend will always be a friend. The status of these two will never change. However, the Lionheart King also understood City Master Qianhu's actions. Seeing a big backer, of course he had to take the initiative. With Qianhu's heaven-ranked level 5 strength, how could he be friends with the third young master? He wasn't qualified. In the Lionheart King's heart, City Master Qian, who was not even qualified to be friends with the crazy Sky Execution or the steady Dragon Emperor, let alone the third young master. At most, he could be compared to the servants like Yong Hui, Hua Ban, and Fei Huang. Maybe because he joined the third young master later, he wasn't as favored as the others. The Emperor of the Underworld flew back from the distant sky. The few great demon kings also returned from all directions. He nodded to Yu Yang. This meant that the enemies who escaped had all been eliminated. Yu Yang waved his hand, indicating that they should clean up the battlefield and not waste any good things. He smiled at the Lionheart King. There will be many opportunities to cooperate in the future. I hope that the Lionheart King can continue to cooperate sincerely and fight side by side like tonight. The Lionheart King was overjoyed when he heard this. His heart finally calmed down. He was really afraid that the other party would turn hostile. One must know that if they really turned hostile, he didn't have the confidence to escape the third young master's starry sky labyrinth. He also didn't have the confidence to avoid those high-speed flying stars. Even if he was at his peak, the Lionheart King felt that he couldn't defeat this incredible young man, let alone now that he was heavily injured. The other party was originally a divine race. Even if he could win, how would he dare to attack this kid? Not to mention the supreme dragon god. Even if the demon dragon knew about it, he wouldn't be able to escape from that guy's pursuit. That was the demon dragon, an existence that even the central shrine would have a toothache just by hearing about. Now that he saw that Yu Yang intended to join forces with him to challenge the central shrine, the Lionheart King hurriedly endured his injuries and solemnly saluted. Of course, the Lionheart King will follow the third young master's lead. After saying that, he looked at Qianhu with a rather pleased expression. Look, I'm his trusted friend. You're just a servant. The city master of Qianhu pretended to be confused. He knew his own worth. The Lionheart King was famous, so of course they were friends. If he could get a good job, it would be a great gift. How could he dare to compare with the Lionheart King, who is known as the strongest king-tier heaven ranker in the southern heaven realm? Queen Tai Lun rushed over to thank him. Along with her was King Tai Lun, who was on the verge of death. Although King Tai Lun wanted to die, that was in the past. Now that the Sky Demon and Sky Ghost that are guarding him were all killed by Yu Yang, he didn't need to go to jail. After a conversation, Yu Yang learned from King Tai Lun that there was a chance of successfully entering the Dark World space-time crack. He also temporarily entrusted King Tai Lun and his wife to the Lionheart King's protection and assigned a mission to the city master of Qianhu. Finally, he left with Sky Execution and the others. When the Lionheart King and the others rose into the sky and prepared to leave, they realized that the starlight runed circle on the ground of Stargazing Island was still flickering. It was getting brighter and brighter, and the energy was extremely unstable. Everyone flew with all their might and escaped dozens of kilometers away. They heard a loud noise behind them. The huge Stargazing Island collapsed for some reason, exploding into countless pieces and falling to the ground. The destructive shockwave chased them from afar. Although they were dozens of kilometers away, the Lionheart King and the others were still in a sorry state. Third young master is too incredible. King Tai Lun, who was beaten black and blue by the Sky Demon, let out a long sigh. The Lionheart King didn't say anything. He wanted to tell King Tai Lun that if he saw the Sky Demon running in the starry maze for half a day and still standing there, and that the third young master could kill the Sky Demon with a flick of the stars, he would probably be even more amazed. Destroying a stargazing island was child's play. The third young master probably didn't even display his true, terrifying strength. The descendant of the supreme dragon god couldn't be described as incredible. The Lionheart King didn't say anything. This was a secret. No matter the reason, he felt that the fewer people who knew, the better. After returning to the Skirich Tower, the joy of killing the Sky Demon and Sky Demon made the Sky Execution, Dragon Emperor, and the others, who had been suppressing themselves, roar. The hard training with the War God Temple Elder had finally paid off. Although he didn't kill Sky Ghost and Sky Demon by himself, it would be a lie to say that he didn't feel a sense of accomplishment to be able to fight against Sky Ghost and Sky Demon and eventually emerge victorious. Even the Emperor of the Underworld, Great Demon King Baruth, and the others who were in charge of killing the shrine guards were cheering. Old Man Nangong was smiling in the joyous atmosphere. Quietly, he wrote a new legend of the Skirich Tower. As Yu Yang grew faster, more and more glorious records that were impossible to achieve in the past appeared under his pen. These were not only an honor that could never be erased, but also a wealth left for the future generations. With the guidance of the predecessors, the future generations would definitely be more determined to move forward. The rise of the Skirich Tower, under the influence of Yu Yang, was unstoppable. Tian Luo Palace. Really? You defeated the Sky Demon and Sky Demon. That's not bad. Little One Li has already grown up. I'm so happy. The only one who could caress Little One, Li's little head, and make her happy from hearing praise was Fourth Mother. What about me? What about me? Shuang'er also yearned for praise. You'll be considered to have grown up when you don't depend on your brother. Fourth Mother smiled and gave the little girl a slap. Then I won't grow up. The little girl felt that lying on her brother's body was the most comfortable. As for whether she would grow up or not, it didn't matter. Huh. Fallen Beauty heard and couldn't help but laugh. I want to go to the Dark World, but I also want to take a look at the Grimoire. Yu Yang mentioned the Grimoire to Fourth Mother. It's good to go to the Dark World first. Pay attention to the fluctuations of the space-time crack. Sometimes it's very unstable. You have to be especially careful. I'm not very clear about these. As for the Grimoire, it's not that easy to contract. Little fallen flowers, come and help me chop some meat. Tonight, I want to make a sumptuous meal to reward you all. Fourth Mother still avoided the topic of the Grimoire, but actually supported Yu Yang to go to the Dark World. She also knows about the Dark World. She seems to be very familiar with it. However, regarding this point, Yu Yang was no longer surprised. He didn't know why Fourth Mother wanted to hide her identity and past, but he knew that she definitely had a reason. If Fourth Mother didn't say, he wouldn't ask. He believed that one day, Fourth Mother would tell him the truth. Or it didn't matter if there was no truth, as long as their family lived together happily. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.